Welcome everyone to the 139th edition of the Nuthouse podcast, brought to you by BoxingSalem.com. I'm your host Andy Patterson. With me today I've got Alex Morris, Kurt Ward, David Loback, Tommy Allen and Steve Wellens. Now, the only minor action to discuss, lads, was probably last night. Manuel Charr getting laid to rest by Marius Bredis in the 5th round. And there was that card that's on just now from Russia, actually, as we speak, where Dave, Roy Jones has been upsetting the Ukrainians, it seems. I mean, what is it with you Americans and your foreign policy? You just seem to piss everyone off, mate. What's going on here?
What exactly has Roy Jones been saying?
Oh, he's into Crimea. He's crossed into what's classed as Ukrainian borders, so unwanted visitor. And plus, he's now he's got a Russian passport, so I'm assuming he's now a Russian citizen.
Hasn't he actually said that this is some ploy by the Klitschko's because they want to fight? Something like that, hasn't he?
I had the actual quote here. Where is it? Where am I saying? Jones goes on to address being placed on the Ukrainian blacklist, quoted as saying, "I know the Klitschko brothers have been itching to fight me, and it could be that this is their way of calling me out. So hey, if Vitaly or Vlad want to settle this over a friendly sparring session for 12 rounds for the world heavyweight title, anywhere in the world outside of Ukraine, including Crimea, they know where to reach me."
You don't really settle a grudge with a friendly sparring session, do you?
Well, that's what Jones is really good for just now. I mean, the guys he's fighting are just now rather than sparring partners.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's serious about that. I think he's just winding some people up.
Kurt, did you have anything you want to add on this Manuel Charr fight? I mean, he got knocked down. He went down in installments, but I tell you what, people were obviously hyping him up there a couple of years back. But erased from a cruiserweight, that's pretty damning. And to be honest, I don't think he's going to go very far from here on in.
No, well, he was a few years ago. He was meant to fight David Haye, and Haye pulled out, and people were saying, I mean, hilariously enough, that he was afraid of Manuel Charr, which was an absolute joke if you ever seen the guy fight. I mean, Haye would have beat him inside 2 rounds easily. I mean, he's lost 3 fights in quick succession now. I mean, Povetkin really did a number on him, and he's just he's a bit of a name that, you know, up and coming heavyweights can use now, I suppose. But yeah, he's never been very good, and it's just, once Povetkin finished him off, I mean, that he was only going to go downhill from there. And that knockout, I mean, yesterday was surprising because the guy's, you know, as you said, he's a cruiserweight. He's got a few losses. No one's really heard of him. And that knockout, I mean, the way he
fucking planted his nose on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, it was just even though he's got a few losses, you just wasn't expecting him to go like that. I mean, even against Povetkin, he took some big shots before he finally went, and that was just, when you see a guy just go face first like that, you know it's like really bad. And you know, thankfully he seems all right, but yeah, I don't know where he's going to go now from here.
I mean, it's really bad. I mean, he lost earlier this year to Johan Nuthouse, who's actually facing Deontay Wilder, Dave, in a couple of weeks' time. I think it's 25th, 26th of September. People really not giving this Frenchman much of a chance. If anything, I've seen very, very fleeting movements of him. I think, if anything, they might carry him a couple of rounds, 4, 5, 6 rounds max. I mean, the thing is with Wilder, though, he's still getting brought along at a very, very tepid pace, don't you agree? Where the fuck's Dave?
He agrees.
What was the question there?
Never mind, man. You don't fucking listen to a word I say.
Well, no, I was thinking about, we talked about Charr and how he got knocked out by this guy, this fairly little guy for a heavyweight. I was thinking more about, like, what about him, this Latvian? Is he the first non-pregnant Latvian we've seen in the ring who actually can kick some ass? Like, where does he go from here? I'm more interested in the winner than the loser.
Well, to be honest, if there is anything, I want to see him doing at cruiserweight. He was up at 213 3/4 or something like that for his fight last night. He made £200 earlier this year, so if anything, I want to see him doing at cruiserweight. I don't think he's only 6'1". I mean, he'd be facing super heavyweights up at heavyweight, so he needs to come down in weight, I think.
But did he go up because he wanted to? Was he the sort of sacrificial lamb, or was Charr the sacrificial lamb? I mean, I don't really know what the promotion was for that fight. I mean, who was supposed to lose to who in that fight? Obviously, Charr got knocked the fuck out, but were they planning on this guy actually doing that to him?
Yeah, that's a good point, because most of the time when we see Latvians being brought over, they're very much the journeyman, the away fighter. But are we going to find this here Latvian where promoters going to put a bit of emphasis behind him? I remember there was a super middleweight a few years ago, Mantas Torvoidas, I think you call him, who fought not at world level, but you know, he wasn't too far off. But there's not much precedent for Latvians being being pushed? Could this be the first guy, if he wasn't being put up as a sacrificial lamb, that they're going to put a bit of money and a bit of time behind him, possibly?
I'm doing a bit of digging here, and I think, I might be right in saying this, I think Char was the home fighter, even though he was fighting in Grozny. This Bredis apparently is with a company called PSB Boxing Team or something, I think they're called. So I think he may have been the opponent, quote unquote.
Char's been based in Russia for a while now, since he fought Povetkin. His last 4 or 5 fights have been over there, so.
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll wait and see what kind of happens. As I said, down at cruiserweight, definitely. But as I was saying, just guys chime in, but Dave, I was directing more at you about Deontay Wilder's next defence against the Frenchman, Johan Nuthouse. I was just saying that Char actually lost to this guy, I think it was a 10-round decision just early on this year. I mean, as I did say, I don't expect great things from the Frenchman. I do expect them to take a couple of rounds, though.
No, it's a guy that shouldn't really cause Wilder many problems at all, but if you're going to hate on this opponent and Heyman in this matchmaking, which is justified, you got to hate on Vlad too. I mean, this guy beat Char.
Fuck's sake.
But look who Vlad fought. Alex Leapai, Char's bitch. Kevin Johnson's bitch. Yeah.
Yeah, he's mandatory.
Like, is that belt worth holding if it's going to make a guy like Alex Leapai a mandatory?
Do you think that Bernard Hopkins should have been some of his belts, so he shouldn't have had to fought, some of the shocking fights he had?
Hassan Sharifi.
No,
Joe Calzaghe, rematch with White.
Murad Hacker. Oh, yeah, fucker.
None of them were as bad as Alex Leapai.
Oh, Leapai was a shocking fighter. No one's doubting that. But all this fight last night, I think, proved that Char was being, even by a few people I saw hyping him up, being used to hype up this French guy who's fighting Wilder, saying, this French guy must beat Manuel Char. That's a decent win on his record. But then Manuel Char gets absolutely knocked the fuck out, and this French guy now seemingly has nothing on his record. Beating Manuel Char isn't really anything, any sort of accomplishment. So, like you say, of course Vlad's got a lot of, he's got a few duds on his record, but
so you're saying it wasn't an accomplishment for Vitaly and Povetkin to beat Char either. I mean, we don't really know much about this little cruiserweight guy. He's undefeated. Yeah. He's got an 82% KO ratio. He's fast. He hits very hard. He's accurate. Like what if this guy could be something?
He could be. Like you say, he could be. He could very well be the next best thing. But what you do, the facts are, he's a cruiserweight, and he went up and fought a career heavyweight and knocked him the fuck out. And that's the facts of it. For the damning report on Char. I mean, yeah, Char also got completely pulverised by Vitaly and Povetkin as well. And I mean, no one really rates those as emphatic wins for either of those guys anyway.
Some of the best heavyweights in history, though, would have been cruiserweights. Like Joe Frazier and Holyfield was better at cruiserweight. That doesn't mean they can't move up and still accomplish a great deal. In fact, I'd like to see more cruiserweights at heavyweight. I think Marco Huck could be interesting at heavyweight. You don't know what these guys. Well, he might be, but I think they've got a certain gas tank, a certain energy, a certain speed that presents something very interesting to the heavyweight division. And I'd like to see more of them moving up, actually.
I'd like to see Steve Cunningham at heavyweight. Oh, wait, I've seen him at heavyweight, yeah.
Yeah, the problem is, I mean, heavyweights have just got bigger now.
That's pretty bad. I thought Tarver fucking just edged that fight against him, man. That's come on, man. That's
I think he's coming
horrible.
to the end of the road now. But look what he did with Tyson Fury. That was a good fight. He looked good in it.
He got fucking knocked out, man.
Yeah, but come on, you got to give Tyson Fury's massive. It was like Cunningham's wasn't his first fight at heavyweight? No, his second fight at heavyweight. Dropped him like a sack of shit, as Andy would say.
You're saying you want to see more cruiserweights about heavyweight. Now you're saying heavyweights are fucking too big. Make your mind up, Dave.
He's not too big to. Look. Tyson Fury's fighting Vlad next. Might beat him. Many of us here. Well, not many of us. Some of us here are picking Fury to win. Fury could be the next heavyweight champion of the world.
I know you are, because you're such a big Klitschko hater, aren't you? You're picking Fury.
Yep, I got Fury.
He picked Leopold.
So did March on the fucking forum. He picks anybody who fucking faces Vladimir.
I did not pick Leopold. I did not pick Jennings, even though I thought Jennings gave him absolute hell.
You didn't pick Jennings? I'm quite surprised about that.
I don't think he gave him hell. He did a little bit better than we expected.
I think that was a very close fight. I think a lot of people or that too wide. Jennings landed more power shots than Vlad in that fight. His body work was very underrated.
Kurt, you're very quiet here, man. You need to get laid into this.
He's just seething with rage at the moment. He doesn't know what to say.
I just laugh at Dave's anti-Vlad agenda. He has to go to bed every night knowing that the Steel Hammer is one of the most dominant heavies of all time. I'm happy with that.
No, but can you deny what I'm saying? Did Jennings land more power shots or not?
Well, most felt Jennings would win maybe a round, and he won about 4, so that's giving him hell, I suppose. I mean, that's something. But I thought Jennings was actually pretty good defensively. I mean, I'm not going to shit on Jennings' performance. I thought he put in a good performance, and he'd do well against a lot of the other top heavies. But, you know, I'll just say, at Vlad's age, he's still beating younger guys, so I think that's good. And he will beat Tyson Fury as well, and then it'll be on to the next one and on to the next one.
Steve, I mean, we do know that Povetkin's going to be next in line for Wilder if everything goes to plan. Do you, deep down in your heart, really believe that this fight's going to happen, Povetkin against Wilder?
No, I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think so either, mate.
No, I think they're going to manoeuvre Wilder away somehow. I've said it before. I think they might even drop the belt if push comes to shove. If Povetkin starts to force things with the WBC, I think they'll drop the belt and start just saying that Wilder's the champion anyway, the PBC champion or whatever, and they'll try to come up with some propaganda to say, oh, you know, those belts, you don't need them anyway. This is the real guy. We're moving towards no belts anyway, and I don't think they'll put him anywhere near Povetkin. I don't rate Wilder in the slightest. I think Povetkin would destroy him, so I don't think that fight will happen now.
I don't agree with that. Povetkin's just this new and improved beast that would destroy Wilder. I think Wilder can hang with him, and I'd love to see that fight, but I don't think it will happen either.
I don't think Povetkin's a new and improved beast. I just think that he just brings so much more to the table with experience, with quality, with a level of opposition, with toughness. Wilder, fair play to him, he's done well, but his resume is just littered with nobodies. I just really need to see him step up beyond the Molinas and the Joanne Duplessis or whatever of this world, and I just don't see how he hangs with a decent guy like Povetkin. I think it'd just be a step too far.
I mean, his credibility did take a boost with Stavern win, but this guy he's facing next, I mean, even the Molina fight, Molina wasn't expecting to go that far.
The Stavern win was good. I picked Stavern. He impressed me that night. I thought that he was going to get knocked out by Stavern. I didn't think Stavern was brilliant, but I didn't expect Wilder would win, and I didn't expect him to win over 12 rounds using the jab. He impressed me that night. I'll give him his due, but it's just one. It's just sort of one win amongst a pile of beating pretty much lesser opposition. No fault of his own, but I just don't know how he beats Povetkin personally. He could prove me wrong. If he does, I give him respect.
I think he needs to take this Povetkin fight. He's got to take it no matter what. I've said it before the Stavern fight. I've never really rated Stavern. I don't think he's that good. He had the title. He beat Chris Iowa, who, if we're honest, Chris Iowa has always been dog shit. So Stavern's never been a fighter I've rated. So I'm still really waiting on Wilder to impress me. I don't think he's done it yet, no. He's got to take that Povetkin fight.
I mean, he did do well with the Stavern fight, as I says, but then if you think about what he did do well in that fight, he showed a decent chin, got a good engine, 12 rounds for the first time, but then it just went all like rat as shit against Molina.
That's the thing. I think the Molina fight has really pushed him back now. I mean, if he'd gone in there and destroyed Molina in 2 rounds, destroys this guy, maybe they would be looking at the Povetkin fight and seeing, he's gone with 12 with Stavern and, mostly dominated the fight. Let's put him in there. But I think that Molina fight really set off alarm bells with his own team, surely. I mean, he's getting hit easily by Molina. He's missing a lot of shots himself. I mean, Molina is, full credit to him. He gave a really great effort and, had Wilder hurt in the 3rd round, but Molina's not very good. I mean, Ariola showed that when he just ploughed through him in 1 round, and as Tommy said, we all know how good Chris Ariola is, and what his level is, so I think that's really set the alarm bells, and they're not going to want the Povetkin fight. It's just since the Vlad loss, I think we've all noticed that Povetkin seems a lot more dedicated. He's coming out throwing a lot more power shots. I think he's looking more aggressive, and I think that's best for him. I mean, he's against Huck. I mean, people throw the Huck fight at him all the time and say, oh, he barely beat a cruiserweight. But he turned up fat and out of shape. He didn't really respect Huck. He took him lightly. I think if you put those two in the ring and both, at their best, Povetkin would beat the shit out of Huck, and that's no disrespect to Huck. It's just different levels, and I think Povetkin, he's on that level, and he's shown since his comeback. I mean, the way he got rid of Mike Perez, I mean, how can you not be impressed with that?
Mike Perez has been shot though since since he put Magomed in a coma. I think he's past it. He's looked terrible against Takam, Jennings, and now Povetkin. And Walk, we were all just shitting on. I mean, the guy's pretty bad. Got to feel bad for him because he was like crying after he got knocked the fuck out last night. But he's just like, he's terrible. So it's all about you can give him credit for the Takam win, which was good, but I think that Takam was ahead in that fight at the time. So I'm not seeing this. Povetkin turned up fat and out of shape for the biggest fight of his life with Vlad, in my opinion. I don't see him as anything special unless he's turned over a new leaf in the training department by injecting some interesting supplements.
Well, he was actually lighter for the Vladimir Klitschko fight than he was against Perez. So
he's packed on some more roid muscle.
Oh, who knows? Russia can be a dodgy place at times. But anyways, just talking about the PBC actually, just moving on to next week's fight, or the main event for next week for us would be Leo Santa Cruz against Abner Mares, vacant WBC Diamond featherweight title, prestigious belt, as you know. Tommy, mate, give me your take on this fight. I mean, I've been saying on the forums on Twitter and stuff like that to you, I do think we've seen the best of Mares. I think he's over the top. Maybe not totally fully shot. But interesting to see what he's got left. I really don't think we can see established in this fight. I think it might go a distance, and if anything, Santa Cruz would probably get the nod. But I'm really pulling for Mares in this one. You think Santa Cruz, though, aren't you?
I'll start off by saying I really like both fighters. I think Mares has got a lot more to his game. He can fight. He's proved he can fight on the back foot. He's a good boxer on the back foot. He can fight coming forward. He's a decent. A lot of people are saying for a long time that he's a power puncher. I don't agree with that. I think he's a decent puncher. So he's obviously got a few dimensions to the game. Leo's more. He's more one-dimensional, come forward, but I think he's no bad technically. He delivers his punches well. I like Santa Cruz. I think he's a beast, to be honest. I think he's going to do he's big. He's big. He's going to go through the weights. He's going to hit some top ones. I think he's just he's going to be his coming out party against Abner Mares. As I say, I like Mares, but I think he'll just do work. Santa Cruz will just do work him over the 12 rounds, and he'll take a decision.
Do you think, Steve? I mean, is Mares that's far gone? Is he shot? Has he got the angles to give Santa Cruz problems? I think that Santa Cruz comes forward in too many straight lines that he can be out-angled.
He could be out-angled. That's an interesting way of looking at it. I fancy Mares in this one, but I am maybe letting my heart rule my head a little bit here because I'm just seeing Santa Cruz's level of opposition, and I'm maybe overlooking the Johnny Gonzalez knockout for Mares. I just think that Mares has fought at a better level. He's beaten better guys. If you look down his resume, you've got people like Anselmo Moreno, Ponce de Leon, Agbeko. I know the Agbeko one was a bit controversial with the low blows and everything. Vic Darchinian. And Santa Cruz, he has very few big names on his slate, and I think he's regressed largely because of the lack of credible opposition. His career has just served as a precursor, really, to how Heyman matches his fighters. And the best opponent that he's fought may be Cesar Seda or Christian Mijares. Mijares was once a quality opponent, but he's way past his best now. Mares, on the other hand, like you said, he's looked poor since the Gonzalez knockout loss, so Leo Santa Cruz will definitely be fresher. But he's looking a long stretch away from the sort of Antonio Margarito figure that we thought he was at one point. But I'm going to go for Mares. I think he's got that one big performance left in him, and he's not even 30, is he, yet, Mares? I don't think.
He's still young, yeah.
Yeah.
I know at the lower weights they burn out a bit quicker, and
his style will do.
It was only the one loss. Can we write it off as he got caught cold? He has looked poor in the 3 fights since Gonzalez, so there's a chance that he is on the slide. But if he's anywhere near his levels of freshness compared to what Santa Cruz has been fighting, I'm just going to go out and go for Mares.
I really think the defeat to Gonzalez, as you say, I think mentally it's really screwed with him. I think he said, just looking at his performances afterwards, he hasn't looked the same fighter. I don't know if it's because he's up in weight, up at featherweight. Who the fuck's that? I think it was Donnie that's on the line there, No. As I'm saying, I really think with him moving up to featherweight, he's really struggled, especially trying to push guys back. I mean, if you look at some of the fights against Perez and that's doing at bantamweight and stuff, he was really pushing them back, those guys back, Victor Chinian and stuff. I think mentally, Alex, this guy is potentially a shot fighter, but I really don't know. We've got 1-on-1 so far. Where are you sitting with Mares and Santa Cruz?
Yeah, this is the thing. I think I agree mostly with what Steve was saying, that Abner Mares does have a lot of the better wins on his resume. He's fought at a much higher level consistently. You know, the win over Moreno, even though it was a lot closer than the cards say, is a very good win. You know, Leo Santa Cruz has fought a really sort of steady B fighter range of people. You know, Christian Mares maybe a B plus or something, but Mares he's really had you know, the better wins, but he's also had the more dramatic come down. I think, you know, getting absolutely destroyed by Johnny Gonzalez really. Yeah, I agree that it's really just messed up his ego, really messed up, you know, the fighter that he is now. I mean, again, you can't really judge it very well because he hasn't really fought anything since that knockout. He's just plodded along. It seemed almost he was out of the ring for a very long time. I think almost a year, wasn't he, after the Gonzalez fight? Was he injured or something? I can't really remember what happened.
See the way he went down. Was there not a leg injury? The way he got knocked down, did his leg not give away in that knockout?
I think it might have been an injury because I seem to remember they were planning the rematch, but then I think Gonzalez got stopped, didn't he, or something, or Gonzalez lost in the interim to or no, he didn't lose, did he? Or did he? I can't remember. I'm
Gary Russell smashed.
Oh yeah, Gary Russell smashed him up recently, didn't he? No, I remember that fight game. They were trying to make the rematch, and then it got cancelled, and then Abner Mares has just plodded along and really not really done much. But Leo Santa Cruz has had that really steady level of mediocrity, and you know, maybe he has got it in the bag to pull out that big win that he's lacking. And Mares, I think, is really sort of dramatically on the down from now, and I think because of that, Leo Santa Cruz will probably win. I think that he will apply a strong amount of pressure to begin with, just really, again, catch him cold, catch Mares cold. I think he might possibly even be scared of getting caught cold again. So I think Leo will go out there and possibly, you know, for all the, you know, the insults we've thrown his way and how, you know, a pathetic little Heyman puppet that he is, I still think that he's got the potential to be a really, really good fighter.
Jordan Singleton was just saying there that he got injured in the build up to the rematch against
right, yes.
That's what it was.
Yeah, I knew they were planning the rematch, but it got cancelled or whatever, and like you say, he was injured. So
this fight was originally meant to happen. If Mares was expected to get past Johnny Gonzalez, then that's when this fight was actually meant to happen the first time, wasn't it? That was the original plan.
I think some people are actually doubting that injury. I think Donnie's just saying it was a rib injury actually, but some people are actually doubting it because it just seemed to be there wasn't really much talk coming out of the camp that he actually wanted to fight. But I suppose one thing, guys, we've got to thank Leo Santa Cruz for this fight, or maybe by extension to Al Heyman, because apparently Santa Cruz has said with this fight he's actually listened to the fans by fighting Abner Mares. If you listen to the fans, he'd be fighting fucking Rigondo or Frampton just now.
Yeah, bullshit. Yeah, I mean, not only that, but sorry if I can jump in here, Andy. So yeah, we don't know if Mares is...
welcome to the show, Donnie. I mean, I would have brought you in there, mate, but just go ahead, don't you go?
I mean, we don't know if Mares' rib injury was real. There was some reports coming out that it was fake. Maybe it was. Maybe he was gun-shy. I think it looks like he's been gun-shy in a lot of the fights he's had since the Gonzalez knockout. But the thing you need to remember is this. Leo Santa Cruz didn't move up from 122 to 126 because he needed to. There was no reports of him coming out like, you know, going into the sauna to make weight or anything like that. I mean, he moved up to avoid Rigondeaux, to avoid Frampton, theoretically maybe to avoid Quigg as well. I don't know. I mean, nothing really to be afraid of there. But, I mean, he moved up because Al Heyman has Mares, and he knew the money fight was Mares. He moved up for the money. He didn't move up because he needed to move up. He wasn't a big puncher at 122. He's going to be even less of a puncher at 126. The reason why Mares has been running scared and fighting in ways that we find to be not impressive is because of two reasons. Number one, I think he's gun-shy after the knockout. But number two, it's also because I think he was struggling to find himself as a fighter. I think he fired his original trainer, and didn't he go with Virgil Hunter for a while? And
yeah, he was there. I was about to fit that one, actually.
And it was
his style.
Fit, and Hunter tried to turn him into something that he wasn't, and then he went back to his original trainers and stuff. But my point is, I think when he takes that first few punches and he realizes that Santa Cruz can't hurt him. At the end of the day, then it's going to come down to skill, and it's going to come down to boxing. And Mares is just a superior fighter. I mean, if I recall correctly, wasn't he an Olympian?
Mares was. He fought for Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, Mares is a good fighter. I mean, he has the tools, he has the skills. Sometimes he comes in guns blazing. He doesn't fight that way. Like, for instance, with against Moreno, I mean, he went in and sort of executed a game plan of vicious body punching and aggressiveness and things like that. But, I mean, he is the superior fighter. And as long as he's not worried about getting his, basically getting rocked by a big punch and getting knocked out, which I don't think he needs to worry about from Santa Cruz, he can fight his fight, and he's going to win. I think it's as simple as that.
Okay, Tony,
this fight's been mooted for a long time. Like, people are saying that he's ducked Regan, though he's ducked Frampton, he's ducked.
He has ducked Rigo. He'd been $3 million offer. Fucking hell! Come on, listen.
I'd say they've kept him away from Rigo, but to say that this guy's ducked Carl Frampton or Scott Quigg's fucking ridiculous to me, man. I think Leo would fucking destroy them both in the same night. I've been vocal about that in the past, but I don't think any of them's really wanted to fight Rigondeaux. I've said that as well. I can say that about the other two, doing it, the two guys over here. They've ducked him as well, but I think obviously the plan's been, as we spoke about for a couple of years, the plan's always been to match Santa Cruz with Mares, so they've obviously they put Mares in Johnny Gonzalez. They wanted him to win that fight, and then they were going to make this, so they've obviously kept him just winning just now so they could make it. That's a big money fight to them over in California and that, so I don't, maybe obviously the Regendow fight should have happened. It should have happened to all the champions doing it that weight, but I don't think, to mention that Quigg and Frampton, I just don't see that, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think I especially don't think that Leo has ducked them necessarily. I think that Heyman's just manoeuvred him and kept him over there because he wants to set up bigger fights in the States and bigger fights.
But that's not really correct though, because remember, Golden Boy owned Leo Santa Cruz's contract, and Leo Santa Cruz, and they were going to try to make Santa Cruz versus Rigondeaux, and Santa Cruz went running to Al Heyman.
Oh, I believe he's ducked Rigo.
That's not fair. Heyman bought the contract too. I wouldn't say that Santa Cruz went running to him. That's not fair, man. You're trying to paint him as somebody.
I think he's definitely running from Rigo. Definitely.
Tommy. Here's a sequence of events. Now, maybe I'm filling in the details a little bit based on my feelings about Leo Santa Cruz. I'll admit that I am a little bit biased. But let me just tell you this. Oscar and Bernard Hopkins started talking about making Leo Santa Cruz versus Guillermo Rigondeaux. Yep. That's step one. Right. Step two is Al Heyman buys out Leo Santa Cruz's contract for an obscene amount of money. Okay? Yep. And step three is, that fight is no longer feasible. And along the way, he's like, I really wanted to fight, Rigondeaux, whatever. And then he goes off and fights a bunch of shitty opponents or whatever. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that, at the point where Leo Santa Cruz... Hang on, wait. At the point where Leo Santa Cruz is naming his son after Al Heyman, he clearly owes a lot to the man. And I think...
he's been vocal about that as well, about his loyalties to Heyman and that, but, it's just... Heyman's no one... He's no one to see that fight, Santa Cruz. We all know that Rigondeaux would win that fight, so Al Heyman's not a stupid man, he's not going to make it, but I think if they had forced the fight onto Leo Santa Cruz, I don't think Santa Cruz would have backed out the fight. I think he'd have took the fight. I don't think he's a pussy, Alex.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just bollocks, put it that way.
I think he had absolutely no interest in fighting Rigondeaux whatsoever. I don't think any of them have an interest in fighting Rigondeaux. I think that he would fight Frampton and he would fight Quigg because he'd feel confident against them. And I've personally stated that I think Frampton beats him. Quigg, beforehand, I did think that it was a bit of a mismatch. I have grown on Quigg a lot recently, but obviously I still favour LSC at the moment. But it depends how he does against Mares, doesn't it? If hopefully Leo decides that featherweight isn't really his division after he beats Mares and he goes back down to fight the three guys that he should have fought in the past couple of years.
I mean, just think about this. The potential winner of this would actually fight, well, I would imagine, put in mandatory position to face Gary Russell Jr. Don't know. I mean, it's another in-house fight for Al Heyman.
Then they move back down to 122 again.
You fancy Russell in that fight?
I don't think either one of them would want to fight Russell. Yeah, I think he'd beat them both easily.
The hypothetical Quigg fight and Santa Cruz would be interesting, I think, because Santa Cruz isn't a massive puncher and Quigg's huge for the weight. I think that'd be a good fight.
Did Eddie Hearn mention that fight a wee while back?
The thing's probably going to be Santa Cruz against Frampton. If this fight happens, obviously with the both connections with Heyman, so that's the way I see it going to pan out like that.
Hopefully, let's just get them all fighting. Enough bullshit. Let's get them in the ring.
Fucking get them off at featherweight and get them in, get Mares in the mix as well. We could do another good Super 6 up there. You know what I mean?
So I think, Tom, you're going with Santa Cruz, Alex, you're going with Mares, Steve, you're going with Mares, Donnie, you're going with Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz. So that's 3-1. Donnie?
Yeah. I'm going to go for Mares. Like I said, I think he's a superior boxer, and I think that Santa Cruz's best chance is a knockout punch that he can't land at 126. He doesn't have the power.
Dave?
I'm going with Santa Cruz. I think he's quite a bit more talented than his recent level of opposition when he's been on Santa Cruz control has led us to believe. I think he may well have regressed because of fighting those like sparring partners and weak guys. But like when he was first coming up, I think we saw a lot of talent there and a lot of ability. I guess those are not the same thing, but I think his work rate's going to win this fight for him. He's gonna get the body work in, and I think he's gonna beat a past it Abner Mares.
Kurt, I think Kurt's not around. Kurt, are you there, mate?
Yeah, I'm going with Santa Cruz as well. I think Donnie said it. I think this is just more of a money fight. I think Mares. I think he's a bit fit. He's a finished fighter now. It's like, to me, it's like the Bellew Cleverly fight. Cleverly took the fight for the money, and then in the fight he showed no interest in really winning. And I can see Mares, he'll put more effort, but I think he's going to get outworked. I think, there's not much difference in age between these two, but I think Santa Cruz just looks the much younger fighter and more hungrier fighter in this fight. Mares is just, it's an easy fight to make for a bit of cash, and I think the Johnny Gonzalez knockout, the way it was, so quickly, I just think mentally it's hard for him to get over that, and he'll probably lose his fight, and that'll be the end for him.
I'm going to put my pick in there. I agree with what Kurt says. Mentally, he's probably shot, maybe finished. I would really want to see Mares actually pull it off, but I just think this is all set up for Santa Cruz in order to try and progress his career. So Santa Cruz probably by, I don't know, 116, 112 or something like that on the cards.
I was just going to say, how do you think, or if either of them do continue to campaign at 126, how do they fare against the other champions, or the champions, should I say? Neither of these guys will be champion.
So we've got Gary Russell, Jesus Cuellar, Lee Selby and Vasily Lomachenko, and I suppose if you want, even though he's not got a title, Nicholas Walters, but then that well, obviously we can forget Lomachenko, Walters, because obviously there's across the street, Lee Selby's.
And also Walters is up at 130 now anyway.
No, he's not. He's staying at featherweight.
He is?
Yep. Because he was out the ring for too long. I think he was out the ring for about 8 months, went back to Jamaica, got a bit fat, to say, whatever, you do what you do, and that's what happens, man. You get a wee bit overweight.
Happens to us all.
That's a big ask to beat any of them in that division for you guys, isn't it?
Aye.
He became a burly reveller.
Well, I think you got Oscar Valdez. I think he's the golden boy, isn't
Who?
he? Yeah.
Oscar Valdez.
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
You got your pal Tommy Jason Velez. I mean, I'm just looking through names in here just now. You got the Hozuna from Japan. I think potentially somewhere down the line, maybe the Lee Selby fight might happen. Some people were asking if he's going to be protected by Heyman now or whatever. I really don't know.
I think if Santa Cruz or Mares, they'd have a hard job. They wouldn't beat Lomachenko. I don't think they'd beat Lee Selby. And Gary Russell, man, he's a good fighter as well, isn't he? That's a big ask.
Maybe Heyman's going to feed the loser to Selby, no?
Well, Selby's in with Montiel next, isn't he?
Fernando Montiel, yeah.
I mean, that's size difference in that fight is just.
He's shot as well.
Yeah.
Montiel shot as an air knockout.
Didn't Donnet knock him out at bantamweight?
He knocked. Yeah. He just didn't knock him out. He actually just fucking planted him fucking right into the canvas. Just
he knocked him about twice with one punch.
Aye, he even got up and he like, what the fuck am I, man?
Wasn't he? He was like riding his bicycle, wasn't he, on the floor?
He's tiny. He was over here whenever Frampton fought Cazares, and he's even compared. He's a really small guy.
That's a disgusting.
Wait, so that was fucking mad. Like.
Is Selby with Heyman now?
Yeah, that's going to be in the States. Yeah, against Montiel.
So that's another one to add. That's another disgusting matchup to add to the Al Heyman thread on.
A beautiful thread.
Yeah, Al Heyman shitty matchups. It's getting longer by the day.
25 pages and counting. It's only been going 2 weeks. Just moving on for that, just to let the listeners know, is we're going to be having a discussion a little bit later on regards to, soon actually, regards to the best or the top 5 super middleweights in the UK's history. So that includes Joe Calzaghe, Carl Froch, Nigel Benn, Chris Eubank, and Steve Collins. Now,
wait, it includes Calzaghe?
Yeah. It's super middleweight, dickhead.
No, but you said the 5 best.
Yeah. Rank them in order. Rank them in order, bitch.
Robert Reed, number 4.
I think we're kicking Donny off the pod now.
Well, let's just leave it just next.
I have him just outside my top 5.
Shut the fuck up. First question comes from Jordan Singleton. He says, "Who's the best fighter in the world today? Not to have had used PEDs, in your opinion, Alex?"
Well, I think everyone's on it, so it's not really a good question to ask me.
How about Nonito Donaire? He's a really good top guy, and he was for a while. He was doing that year-round stuff. So I mean, I kind of doubt that he's suddenly on PEDs after that. That was when he was in his at the top of his game, at the top of the division, pretty much running the sport.
I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with that Argentinian light welterweight.
I'm going to say Nonito Donaire because I know he's clean. He's did the VADA testing. So,
but the one with like one knockout.
What about? I mean, I don't think there's ever been any accusations about Tim Bradley.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Look at the size he has. He's man. He's fucking good doing them.
I know. Yeah, he. The funny thing is if you looked at him, he looks like somebody who did roids. But then you see how he can't punch. And so.
He's got a ped head.
He's got a ped head, exactly, man. See, when you see these guys, I've seen that before, you see these guys have got fucking 8, 12 packs, man. You just didn't see that back in the day, man. All these guys, they're on something that's just no be fucking detectives.
Andre Ward.
It's like a Cadbury's Dairy Milk.
Yeah, but these guys who have like are ripped to shreds and have like these great abs and all that, and like chiseled necks, they're oftentimes like they don't look good in the ring. Like look at John Pascal, he's ripped to shreds, but he gasses in 4 rounds and stuff.
Yeah, too much muscle can actually be counterproductive for your conditioning because
that's the problem. No,
yeah. Shane Mosley never looked better than when he fought Pacquiao, but he barely threw a punch. And like look back in the day when you had guys who weren't so ripped. Frazier, Rocky Marciano, even Muhammad Ali. These guys weren't like shredded to pieces, but they could go 15 rounds. They could go longer than that, throwing punches forever, taking shots. You know, it's obvious that these physiques, even if they're given by PEDs, are not winning fights.
Mm-hmm. And you got to remember people who say about the PEDs give someone a great chin. Just look no further than me and Tommy's mate Larry Alabama. Well, glass chin, but on every single PED known to man.
Hey, listen, his chin's not that bad. He went 10 rounds with Gary Cornish.
He must have glowed in the dark. He must have glowed in the dark with the amount of drugs he was taking.
He was built like a tank, weren't he?
36 steroids or something.
I mean, I know some people like use EPO very fucking. They'll just be microdoses and stuff like that. Larry went in all in on the fucking drugs and that. He must have been like on intravenous drips and stuff like that. Must have had one in his cock, one in 2 arms, and one in each leg and that, just to get fucking just to the max.
He was literally like a kid in a candy store. He just picked everyone and just had everyone.
He's just proof that, he is the extreme of one end, isn't he? And that just. I was on a bit of a rant about it earlier about PEDs and other sports, but he's just the proof that it's absolutely rampant. Even no matter the level, even at this, the entry level that Larry was in, he was in athletics as well, wasn't he? Was he a sprinter?
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
and he was doing it then, and he said like how fucking absolutely rife the sport was with it, and it's just that's why I can't say for certain. who hasn't really been doing it and who's really not on it. And when you learn about all these new PEDs they've kind of, and all the microdosing and things, it's you can do what you want and even be doing VADA testing. It's ridiculous.
I think
the thing is,
Con and Canelo both clean, probably.
Kurt, you're quite right what you said there, mate. Larry O did say to you and Tommy it was nothing but excuses, though, eh?
I'm appalled by this lack of respect for a former pod guest.
Oh, hey, listen. I like Larry. Larry's a nice. They came up as a nice guy. We could just best way to describe him would be an honest cheat. Eh? Fucking
the nicest drug cheat in boxing.
Yeah. That was funny, man.
Here we go. Enough said on that, man. Eh? The most honest cheat out there. Aye, fucking okay. It's importing his shit from China and that. He's down. Nobody a pass giving it, Fuck's sake. Next question, guys. Mickey D. Who do the panel think will be the pay-per-view stars in 2017 in the UK and in the States?
In the UK, Kell Brook and Anthony Joshua.
They're
In the
already
United
there,
States,
aren't
yeah. In the
But
United
is Kell
States,
Brook really a star, though? I mean, people call him a star, but
I wouldn't say
it
he's a
doesn't seem
star.
like he has
No,
a fan
they
base.
need to bring. The thing is that the welterweight division right now is like the way the heavyweight division used to be. It's like where all the damn money is, and the money is so obscene in America right now with the welterweight division, and also to some extent 140, 154, and that neighborhood. The money is so big over here right now that Kell Brook either needs to come over here or Eddie Hearn needs to go deep into his pockets to bring a legit guy over for him to fight. But I mean, they're going to keep putting him on pay-per-view against, the Diego Chavez's of the world. And it's like, all right, that's a respectable opponent, but can he really headline a pay-per-view, or does Eddie have to stack the card underneath him to make it, a card that's worth buying for the average UK fan? I mean, Kell Brook has the potential to be that person, but he needs the opponents, and it seems like he's having a little trouble getting them. Joshua is just going to be pay-per-view just because the hype is just so insane, and he's great. I mean, he looks great, too. I mean, he looks the part, and he's knocking guys out, and he's doing everything that he's supposed to do, and, I mean, they can build that up because people love a good heavyweight. And in the United States, Golovkin and Canelo, both, especially if they fight each other, man, will be huge. And what else do you have? I think Crawford and Pac could be a pay-per-view. Obviously, I think Mayweather's still going to keep fighting after this supposed retirement fight, so you still have him.
Even in 2017, this is what the question was.
I thought he said 2016.
It was 2017,
Sorry.
Wasn't it?
Oh, 2017?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I mean, who else you got? Well, I'll turn it over to other people. I think if... I don't know.
Campbell's going to be a star, isn't he? He's fucking got the talent, man. He comes across
He's
well.
not being
and
marketed well, though, is he? That's the problem. He's not getting...
Has he got that explosivity for crossover into pay-per-view just yet?
No,
I'm
I
not
don't
so
think
sure.
so. I don't think so.
He's going to kick on now, Campbell, I think, after the coil, and he's going to get a good push in that. I think in the next 2 years, they'll have a world title, will still be unbeaten, because talent-wise, I think the guy's he's just unbelievable to me. I think he's frightening.
Dave, what about in America? What do you think's coming through? I mean, Errol Spence Jr., who's the Puerto Rican kid? I mean, what's his name again?
Verdejo.
Verdejo.
I mean, he seems to be coming back through injury and stuff, so we're looking at him potentially picking up the baton.
Terrence Crawford is before him. Verdejo is still a question mark. Crawford really seems to have proven himself legit, and I think he's going to be soon at the right weight for him to take over the Pacquiao mantle. Because of his style, he probably won't ever be, and he doesn't bring a whole country behind him. He's not going to be like this world superstar like Pacquiao, but he could be a big ticket seller and a big money maker. I think once he becomes sort of the American hero. There's Gary Russell Jr. I think he has potential. He's very fun to watch, actually. Usually. Because he throws a lot of punches, he's very fast. His combination is really lovely to look at. If he stays away from Lomachenko, of course he said that 99 out of 100 times he wins that fight. But as long as he stays away from Lomachenko, I think he beats anybody around that weight. So I think that's good. I think he's definitely a potential star. Errol Spence, still a question mark, but good things so far. What other guys does Aram have that are American? I don't think he doesn't really have an Americans.
Valdez. Oscar Valdez, is he no American?
Heyman's got most of the Americans. And sadly, most of them are not looking too good.
I think it's very hard to see where an actual American pay-per-view star is going to come from. And, we mentioned Terence Crawford, but we've saw many Americans over the years who have been talented, been exciting, and they just haven't been able to get to that pay-per-view level. I mean, and just even if Crawford goes in with Pacquiao and beats him, that it doesn't really necessarily mean he's going to take over that mantle. I mean, Shane Mosley beat Oscar De La Hoya. It didn't really do nothing for him in terms of, being a massive star. And I just think it's hard to see where they're going to come from, because if you look at the guys that get a lot of ratings or sell a lot of tickets, guys like Floyd Mayweather, even Adrian Broner in terms of ratings, you have to be that cocky, arrogant guy, the guy that people love to hate. And guys like Tim Bradley, Andre Ward, it doesn't matter how talented they are, how many great wins they get, they never seem to get the same kind of exposure, and that's sad to see.
What about the Stevenson-Kovalev winner? I think that fight is, potential pay-per-view. Do you think that they could go on to be continued pay-per-view stars?
Just talking about
I think that fight is pay-per-view, but whether the winner is a pay-per-view star is an open question.
Just talking about that fight, I see Stevenson's reared his fucking duck on his head, actually saying that he would take the fight if Heyman says so. So you could have took the fight before you say with Heyman, you prick.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Never going to happen. Next question before we do go into the main topic of discussion anyway. Tommy, Sam ATR is asking, do you believe David Hay will ever make a comeback? He seems to have been talking about this for a long time now.
He'll definitely come back. It just depends. He's obviously waiting the right opponent. David Hay's obviously wanting to jump right into a big fight. There's a bit of title manoeuvring and that going on just now. So, manoeuvring. There's big fights coming off and that now. So he's just going to. And you just sit and wait to see if he can get another fight with somebody like Wilder or maybe Povetkin. He's not going to get Vladimir again, so maybe Tyson Fury, even though they've said they won't fight him, but he's just waiting for the right opponent to come up. He'll definitely fight again though. Okay.
Right, the main topic of discussion now, apologies for all you Irish guys in there. Steve, I hold you responsible, mate, for not correcting me on this mistake. I did say best UK super middleweights. I should have said UK and Irish super middleweights.
I thought because you said, made a connection between them fighting on UK cards and stuff.
No worries.
Let you off with that, I mean.
So Steve never corrected you, so we should hold him responsible.
Right, Alex, just so I get this right, mate, is this solely on resume 168? Is that right? And it's not
my topic of discussion, it's Tommy's. And
Tommy, what's the rules here, mate? So. You're the boss, mate. So what's the rules of this discussion?
I was just if you don't want to do it just on 168, it's fine by me, but originally I was just who was the best out of them all, so you take everything into account. That's what I kind of meant to start with, yeah.
Right, okay. I do know some callers I want to call in as well, so if you do want to call in, just add the Box of Selling Pod on Skype and we'll get you through. Now, what I want to do then, lads, is let's start in ascending order. Ascending order. So start with number 5 first. Who should be at number 5? So my personal pick would need to be Steve Collins. I think the simple fact is the Nigel Benn wins are probably, even though he beat him, Ben was shot at that time, personally. The Eubank first win, I felt it was a draw, and I can't remember what happened again with the second fight, but I just don't think he's got the actual career length at super middleweight to be any higher. Tommy, what do you think about it?
I've got number 5. I've got Michael Watson. I don't think if Michael Watson had got the injury that he would have been down there. It's just the fact he got the injury. He was never world champion. I thought Nigel Benn was green when he beat Nigel. Obviously Ben came out fast and punched his shell out. Nigel Benn, to me, improved a lot after that fight. He went on to beat some great fighters and that. So I'm going to say Michael. I think Michael Watson's an outstanding fighter, and I'm a big fan of him. It's maybe a bit harsh putting him there, but just he never had obviously the career longevity in that because of the injury. So I'm going to put him there.
But he's only had one fight at the weight though, mate. 168.
Sorry.
He's only had one win at the weight.
So we're going to... are we doing it by weight class, or are we doing it just all in?
We could start at 168 and then move on to the...
Yeah, because I think I think if you look at 168, I mean, if you were taking like the reins at like maybe 160, 175 or whatever, it would probably see Joe Calzaghe just piss it out the park. So if you make it 168, it maybe makes you slightly closer.
I was just thinking. I wasn't thinking when I originally put it out there. I wasn't thinking about taking weight classes out in the account. I was just thinking about like wins. You know, who's actually had the best wins. And I wasn't thinking about titles at different weights and stuff like that. You know.
So you just leave that there, mate, Michael Watson?
I'll just because I've been lost. I spent a bit of time doing a wee bit more research in that. So I'm going to see Watson. Yeah. Okay.
Steve, number 5 on your list.
I'm going for Nigel Benn. As with all these lists, when I do them, mine is just based on personal opinion and pure subjectivity rather than weighing up wins against wins and what have you. The Benn, Eubank, Watson era, Collins as well to a certain extent, obviously was a great era, but I wasn't personally part of it. I wasn't even a boxing fan then. I was too young, to be honest, to thoroughly enjoy it. So that does play a part in my decision-making process. So I'm going to go for Benn at number 5. He was a really exciting fighter, flawed guy as well, but his fights against the likes of McClellan and Eubank, they are great fights. I've watched them since. I don't remember them too well at the time. But I'll also say, even though I'm rating this on a top 5 basis, it's razor-thin margins. You know, you could easily twist a few of the players around. It's not like the 5th. Number 5 is 5 places worse than number 1, if you know what I'm saying. I put them very close, but I'm going to go for Nigel Benn at number 5.
Dave the Hater, number 5 on your list.
This is tougher for me because I don't know much about Steve Collins. I've only seen the fight where he made Nigel Benn quit, which I guess he did that twice. And then I saw, that's it. That's all I've seen of Steve Collins. And then I've only seen like 3 fights of Eubank. So I'm going to have to put, I think, Eubank at number 5. No doubt he's a very good fighter. I just think he got, I don't want to say lucky at times, but he was really bailed out by his power. I mean, his work rate in the ring was usually pretty poor. He always looked to set up that one big explosive shot. The guy got a gift over Watson. You know, I think Benn clearly won that rematch, and I think he was dominating him in the first fight until again when his power bailed him out. So I think Eubank's number 5 for me.
Kurt, number 5 on your list, mate.
Yeah, I was just going with like 168 career at first, so I'm going to go with Steve Collins. I think if you look on his record and don't watch any of the fights, you'll see straight away that he's got wins over. Well, he's got 2 wins over Eubank and 2 wins over Nigel Benn. So you'd think he has to be right up there, but for me, Nigel Benn was absolutely shot to shit at that stage. You know, no fault of Collins, but you know, Eubank mentally and physically after the McClellan fight that was him done. Eubank was on the slide, and they were both close fights. I mean, he got the nod, and I think the second fight, especially, he's quite tough on Eubank because I thought he deserved it. But yeah, for me, I mean, he did really well at the tail end of his career. Steve Collins, you know, he picked up the WBO title, and he was supposed to fight Joe Calzaghe, but then he had to retire. I think he collapsed, and he, you know, for safety reasons, he did, and he never got that fight. But yeah, I think he was lucky that he got Benn and Eubank at the end of their careers, and I think it would have been, even though he would have gave them tough fights earlier on, I don't think he would have beat them, to be honest, at their best.
Finally, Alex, number 5, mate.
Yeah, I'm going for Collins at number 5 as well. Very similar reasons to Kurt, really. I think that Collins really caught them, caught the other guys, in the twilight of their careers. Eubank, of course, you can say Eubank was undefeated, but was he really? I mean, the amount of draws and dodgy decisions that he got over, the other guys, for example, and just some really shocking opposition as well. I think that win, as big as it was at the time, I still think that in hindsight, of course, it's not as significant. Obviously, Benn as well, he was far past it. Benn at that point, he'd already had the G-Man fight, and that took out just so much out of him. And Collins, I think that if he had his opportunity to fight them, at an earlier time, then maybe we would have seen something different. But unfortunately, he rests at number 5 for me.
Right, number 4 on my list now. I'm kind of been flipping this one over as I was thinking about it today and stuff. And I think I'm going to go number 4. I'm going to go with Nigel Benn. Now he did go abroad and win the WBC super middleweight title. Stopped Nicky Piper. I think he had the rematch where he's at Galvano, I think it was. That was after the first fight was stopped in a cut, I think.
Yeah, that's when he won the WBC title.
That's the one, mate. Right. I think he then had a draw with Eubank. I think Jimenez is in there somewhere before the McClellan fight, and then it's just kind of really from that fight. It's probably Alex Sayes, as he was just going to mention the Collins fight against Benn. That was really his apex. 25th of February 1995 is probably the best you'll probably ever see of Benn. Simple fact is for pure grit and determination, just sheer bollocks. He was never going to be defeated that night, and he gave it up and left it all in the ring, and that's all you can ask as a fighter sometimes. But after that, I think he went downhill. Vincenzo and Nardello, I think that was the guy that Robin Reed defeated, I think, for the title.
That's right, Robin Reed beat him in Italy, yeah.
Yep, and Malinga as well beat him before the two Collins defeats. Now, Malinga actually got beat I think it was quite handily. I think he got dropped off Eubank, actually. So, to me, I think, even though Eubank hasn't really got the greatest resume, sometimes people will say, but I'll come on to Eubank in a bit, but for me, Nigel Benn, number 4 on that list. Tommy?
I've got Steve Collins as number 4. I like Steve Collins. I think Nigel Benn was completely shot when he fought him. I don't think Chris Eubank was. I've got Eubank and Collins 1-1. I think Eubank won that fight where obviously I had that 114, 113. I think it was a first fight, and Eubank put him down in the second round. It was a clear knockdown, and
he didn't get called, did it? Yeah.
He didn't get called. He put him down. It was definitely a knockdown. I scored that for a point to Collins, but that's a 3-point swing in the fight because obviously Collins, he's probably went on to win that round. So I think Chris was hard done by in the fight. I think they were both kind of close fights, but I don't think Chris was done at the time. So that's how I've kind of just staged Collins in front of Michael Watson because of that. Obviously, Watson was tragically knocked out. I know Watson should have won the first fight with Eubank, but that was a brutal knockout, wasn't it? And I've just kind of used Collins ahead because of that.
Steve, number 4 on your list, mate?
Number 4, I'm going to go for Eubank. We all know he had a great chin and a great heart, but he was a warrior too, as well as a showman. He was just a real tough guy for all his bravado and his messing around. He had a warrior's heart, and he showed even in the Watson fight. Even with blood pouring out of his mouth, he just bit down and he let the power show. And saying that, he did win a few close ones. I thought he got a few sneaky decisions and he sailed close to the wind on a few occasions, but even right up to the end of his career, I know it's away from the 168-pound division, but those 2 fights with Carl Thompson, even though he was outweighed and in against a big, heavy-handed guy.
That fight, mate, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think the first fight, it was only for the fact, he was never going to win the fight, but he had the eye closed over, didn't it, in one of the fights, and he just kept on going, and He's just a really.
I thought it was passing the second fight before the eye injury stopped him.
He knocked Thompson down, didn't he, and hurt him? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Fourth round. Was that on the first fight you knocked him down?
I think it was, mate. Aye.
It's been years since I've seen him. I can't remember. I just remember that he gave Thompson a really hard time. A couple of weight classes at least away from his best weight. So I'll give Eubank a lot of respect.
Okay, Dave. Sorry.
Number 4, I'll put Collins. Again, for the record, I don't know that much about the guy because I've only seen him fight once. So I'm evaluating him based on BoxRec and everyone else's comments. And in the Nigel Benn fight that I did see, though, he looked quite good, although I think he was pretty much cleaning up the leftovers of Nigel Benn's career. And I think he sort of got lucky with the Eubank as well, being past it, but I think his wins over Eubank I think Eubank wasn't as far gone as Benn was by a long shot, and I think Collins should justifiably be ranked over him by some of the other top opposition he was in with, and really he was always a really tough guy. Apparently, he went the distance with great middleweight McCallum. Are we counting those achievements because I was at middleweight?
Let's just stick to 168 just now.
Well, okay. He lost to the guy. Well, no, that wasn't super middleweight either. Okay, well, super middleweight, he didn't have that many fights, but still won them all. So I'm going to put him over Eubank.
Kurt, number 3. So what was number 1 here?
Number 4 now.
Number 4, sorry, mate.
Yeah, for me, it's Eubank. I mean, I think the problem with Eubank is after he had he had 2 great wins at middleweight. I think, obviously the stoppage of Nigel Benn and the win. Officially he got the win over Michael Watson. It was a close fight, but I think most felt that Watson deserved it. But in the rematch, which took place super middleweight, he was getting dominated in the fight. He was exhausted. He was dropped for the first time in his career. I think Nigel Benn dropped him, but this was official. This was a proper knockdown. He was way behind, and he pulled out the punch out the bag, and tragically it ended Watson's career. But it just showed Eubank's heart that he didn't just give up, and he pulled it out the bag. But that was his best win at super middleweight against Michael Watson, who was a middleweight himself. So after that, he didn't really do anything. He, as Steve said, he got quite a few gift decisions. I think most people believe he lost to Nigel Benn in the rematch at super middleweight, and he got a gift draw. He had close fights with Ray Close and just guys who really shouldn't be in close fights. With guys he should have been better than. The worst one was he went to South Africa and he signed a deal with Sky. He was on ITV. He signed a deal with Sky and he went on like a world tour, and it was just like take the easy money and fight no hopers basically. And he went to South Africa and fought a guy called Dan Sharma who was terrible, and most felt it was an absolute robbery. Ian Dark and Glenn McCrory had him losing the fight, and he got the win in that fight, and that was just an embarrassing performance against the guy who really he was just a typical WBO 90s fight, a guy with no hope, and he actually for the most part outworked and outfought Eubank. And for me, Eubank's best wins come at below super middleweight, and that's why for me he's ranked where he is. It's just that he officially had the long run, and like I said, the fights with Collins, I think Tommy's right. They're probably 1-1. He lost the close one, and I thought he nicked the second one, I believe. So he had a great career, but I just think he was the beneficiary of some dodgy decisions.
Newsflash: Roy Jones is rapping on Box Nation for anyone interested. Alex, number 4 on your list, mate.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just going to be repeating what Kurt said again. Eubank for me at number 4. Again, for a lot of the similar reasons. Basically, that Eubank, I feel that a lot of the fights, he lost the very close fights, and obviously, that fight in South Africa is absolutely ridiculous. The Nigel Benn fight, first one was a very good win. Second fight, obviously, I felt Benn edged that one. He got robbed in that one, and he went on throughout his entire career with this, supposed undefeated record, but with about, 3, 4, maybe 5 losses on it, and it's just ridiculous. Before Collins finally stopped him, and he did show there was signs of brilliance for him. Obviously, the Watson fight was just the way he came back from that, and the tragic ending to it. It was just insane from him, and I think that he was just such a lazy fighter, and I think that if Twitter was around when Eubank was around and I was around and properly growing up, I would have absolutely despised him. I would have hated him. The attitude that he had towards the sport, the whole I don't care, but I'm not interested in making hard fights. I'm not interested in fighting the best. I just want to fight to make money, and that would have really wound me up. And I knew I would have absolutely despised him and shat on him at every single opportunity, and worse than some of the hate that I've got now, really. And I think that's probably translating a little bit now, but he was a great fighter when he tried and when he put it there. And the Watson fight obviously really took that killer instinct out of him. He did alright when he fought Calzaghe, I suppose, but he was far gone by then. And it was quite interesting the turn that he made towards the end of his career to being a bit of a fan favourite, but I still would have thought he'd been an absolute fucking knobhead.
Imagine just knew if Chris Eubank was fighting and Eddie Hearn promoted him, man. Alex would be up in the fucking rafters with
he
a
would have been,
right?
That's it. Eddie Hearn would have promoted him, and he would have been, just awful, man.
His dad was doing the same job, wasn't he? Barry Hearn was with Eubank. Exactly, Barry Hearn was the guy who took him to Sky. Barry Hearn was the guy who hyped him up. And in a lot of cases, Eubank's fights were largely dull affairs, but it was his character, his persona outside the ring that drew a lot of people in. And Barry Hearn, like Eddie, who's obviously learned everything from his dad, he played up to it and got people watching. And no matter what happened, Eubank even if people criticised him afterwards, said it was a shit fight, they'd all tune in the next week, and that's why Sky paid him a hell of a lot of money to. I think he signed a deal to do 8 fights in about 12-month period because he was that popular at the time.
What was that allegation again from Frank Warren? Did he blame Barry Hearn for the rubber match? Oh, sorry, for the third fight between Eubank and Benn not happening? There's a wee documentary kicking around somewhere.
Wasn't it to do with Don King?
Is that what it was? It was something to do with... No, that's what it was. Because the fight came to a draw, there had been nothing written in the contract about a draw. You know,
right.
What would happen if, you know, for instance, if Eubank had won, they would both go with King or whatever and stuff. The draw was actually factored into the contract. So Hearn told him to go another way, and I think eventually he ended up leaving Hearn and went his own way, I think.
But Don King was getting options on the winners, regardless. He already had Benn, didn't he?
Aye.
And obviously Barry Hearn stitched Don King up. He says there's nothing in the contract about a draw, so I keep Eubank, so that's how it never happened. And obviously they tried to make Benn against Michael Nunny after that, didn't they? And
Warren was fucking raging with him, like. Warren was fucking raging when I seen that interview. Fucking Christ. Anyway, number 3, Malice.
Frank got him in the end, though, didn't he?
Aye, true. In the end, but them both fucking shot the shit.
Yeah.
But number 3, Malice, now you will remember I just says that 3 and 4 Malice can be interchangeable. I'm going for number 3 Malice is Chris Eubank. Now, I take on everything what the guys have said. He got that draw against Ray Close. I think he lost by a couple of points to Nigel Benn. But I just think, you know, the Tony Thornton one was okay. The come from behind win against Michael Watson was good. Just showed you what his heart was like. He beat Malinga, probably slightly better. Well, he actually beat him. I think Ben actually fought him twice, actually, Malinga, but I think Eubank did it better. The Schomer fight was shocking, but then you also got the Roccagiani win. He went to Germany and did that.
It's a good win.
Yep, very good win. And also, underrated win, I think, on my list is Henry Wharton. Now, Wharton was a good fucking fighter back in the day.
Yeah, he was.
Deadly left hook, great chin, man.
Very good fighter. I mean, he beat Nardiello, he beat Thornbury, he beat Galvano. I think he went the distance with Ben as well. So, yeah, I think he's slightly underrated resume. I mean, as I say, I think it was a draw with Collins in the first fight, and I think maybe he shaded the second fight. Took the Calzaghe fight on late notice as well. Showed again what type of fighter it was. But yeah, for me, Chris Eubank number 3. Tommy?
Right. I'm going to go Carol Froch next. Wait a minute. You sure we're at number 3?
Yeah.
Right.
Tommy, you put in Michael Watson, so you're having extra.
I know. So
I don't know what number you're on, Tommy, but we're on number 3.
I've got Collins at 5. I've got Froch next. Froch would be number 4. So you must have skipped me for number 4.
No, I came to you with number 4, mate.
You added Watson, didn't
you? You had Watson at 5.
No, that was 6. I was just counting that as number 6. I counted that as number 6, because he would be meant to be in it.
You're the only one with 6 fucking fighters, Christ.
That's right. I based my minds on 6, so I started this debate. So I make the fucking rules up, right? So I'll say Collins at 5, Froch next, number 4.
Where have you got Robin Reid, Tommy? Where's Robin Reid?
Robin Reid would just be above Steve Collins, my Irish friend.
Where's Paul Smith?
Fuck that cunt, man. I hate that bastard.
What you feeling, man?
Right, so no, I've got Froch next. I think obviously one of the big factors is I think Carol Froch fought in an overrated era. I've been vocal on this in the past as well. I'm not too impressed with the likes of Andre Darrell and that and the hype they get. What's Andre Darrell actually done in the sport? After Abraham gets a lot of hype, he was never a sort of middle. Has he ever been a top fighter? Maybe back at middleweight. So there's a lot of things like that. These guys, the guys he's fought have had a lot of hype. I think the one elite fighter that Froch has actually been in with took him to bits. I wouldn't class Michael Kessler as an elite fighter when Carol beat him, obviously. Yeah, you could see that. It was evident in that fight that, you know, when a fighter starts to slow down, he gets older. It takes a long time for timing to come in. See, for the first 4 rounds in that fight, Kessler's timing was, you know, it reminded me, it was like fucking Hattons in that Sinchenko fight. It was really bad. So I don't even count that as a good win for Carol Froch. I think Froch's resume is very, very overrated. So
that's your number 4, man. So what's your number 3 before I go on to Steve?
Right, my number 3 is Chris Eubank. I never like Alex was saying there, I was like that because I can remember Chris. I can remember Chris's career. I can remind him for the Benn fights and that, and I was never a big fan of him. But obviously, the guy, his toughness was fucking. It was unbelievable. He's obviously got the wins over the top guys like Nigel Benn. He's got Michael Watson. He's got I think a very underrated win for him is not Graziano Roccagiani. He went over to Germany and beat him.
Yep.
Roccagiani was a top fighter. He's got some good wins. I think he beat the likes of Michael Nunn and Ken. I remember him. He's fought Crawford Ashley in that as well. But he won a couple of world titles in that. So to me, that's an underrated one. I think Chris's resume is underrated. Obviously had a couple of dodgy decisions there after the fucking Benn draw, where a couple of them could have went either way. But as I say, I think he should really be one with Collins as well. So I've got Eubank up there at number 3.
Steve, number 3 in your list, mate?
Number 3, I'm going to go for Collins, Steve Collins. Beat Eubank twice, beat Benn twice. I know there were faded versions and such, but got the wins over those guys. Cleaned up the sort of UK lesser tier guys like Neville Brown, Cornelius Carr, Chris Pyatt. And I know it's exclusively super middleweight, but, you know, sort of fights with Mike McCallum, like Dave mentioned, Reggie Johnson, Sambu Kalambe, all on away soil. You know, he was just such a tough, exciting fighter. Enjoyed his style. If you're looking resume for resume, like, I can see why the likes of Eubank would be higher, but I enjoyed Collins' style more than Eubank's. But then I think to myself, well, why have I got Benn at number 5? Because he was probably more exciting than the two of them. This is where I get myself into a bit of a tangle with the numbers. Like I said before, there's not a great deal between them, but yeah, Steve Collins at number 3 for me.
He was unlucky in the fights with Reggie Johnson and Kalambe. Johnson fight go down either way, and you look at that, the Kalambe fight was over in that leg. Nobody gets a decision over in that leg, did they?
Yeah, and Kalambe was a good fighter too. And McCallum, I think Mike McCallum was one of the most underrated fighters. He was a superb fighter, and Collins gave him a right good fight.
McCallum's an ATG. Kalambe beat McCallum, so, you know.
But there's no Irish bias in your pick there, Steve, is there?
No, I said before, the 5 of them could be interchangeable. I liked Collins' style, and I'm more likely to see him at a show than the others.
Self-preservation, mate. I like it. Dave,
Steve Collins doesn't like us, does he? But no. Remember what he says on the months on the map.
No, it was not us. It was you.
Well, it was me because I scored that fight for Pacquiao. Come on,
was that the Marquez third fight?
That was the third fight of Marquez, aye.
He says you need to be in an asylum.
He says you should be looked up in an asylum, eh?
Just think though, if Collins is number 3.
That was a fucking close fight. You could have went either way, man.
If Collins is number 3, where's Frank Buglioni going to get on these lists? Because Collins said recently that Buglioni is better than he was.
No.
His brother's training Buglioni, doesn't he?
Yeah, Pascal. Yeah, he was a hard fighter in his day, Pascal as well.
Mm-hmm. Dave, number 3 in your list, mate.
It's going to be Joe Calzaghe, and the only reason he's above the likes of Steve Collins is because he had more of his career at 168 in this list. Because he fought almost his whole career there. Hopkins and Jones were the only 2 fights I'm seeing on this ledger that weren't there. So his entire resume is pretty much shit. Most guys are trash opponents, domestic European guys, nothing special. The wins you can give him credit for at super middleweight. Jeff Lacey wasn't anything special though, even if he was favored. I mean, obviously that he's been exposed as a nothing fighter since then. Saki Obika, I give him props for this win. I've never seen the fight, so I don't know why it was.
Don't bother watching it.
How good he looked. But Saki Obika, I think, is a troublesome fighter. I mean, he even gave Andre Ward problems. So, you know, I think he's quite a good fighter. And the Kessler fight, I think is his best win. Because I don't think he beat Bernard Hopkins, but in this discussion anyway, we're talking about super middleweight. So Mikhail Kessler, I think his best win. It was a tough, close fight. But Calzaghe clearly won, and that's, I guess, why he's at number 3. At light heavyweight.
What about your hometown guy? Who he fought?
Yeah, he lost that fight, but we're talking about.
We're talking about 168. What about Charles Brewer? Charles Brewer was
that was a good fight. The hatchet. That was a good fucking fight. That, by the way.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
That was a great fight.
I never saw that. Never saw that fight.
Ah, see, there was no much cow slappy that night. It was all fucking. It was a trench warfare fight.
That was a good fight.
I've seen the highlights of this hero Calzaghe, the epic puncher, and he was. If anyone benefited from the early British stoppages in history, it was him. I mean, Terry O'Connor's like the man.
Oh, here we go, the Byron Mitchell fight.
The Byron Mitchell, yeah.
What about Peter Manfredo?
He was getting punched a bit like a fucking wet condom, man.
I don't know all the names of these guys, but there's highlights of Calzaghe, the KO artist, and I mean, it's just.
I think the one that stands out is Manfredo, isn't it? That's
shocking.
That was a dodgy stoppage, Brad. Because see the thing with Calzaghe, man, he was putting. You see guys getting waved off on their feet and that, but he's fucking had them down 2 or 3 times before they've fucking been waved off, haven't they?
Well, Byron Mitchell got stopped throwing a punch, and he knocked Calzaghe down heavily as well, hadn't he, beforehand?
Calzaghe just went crazy after that knockdown, He just fucking went for it. That was good. So, Dave, you're going to make...
Robin Reed beat him at super middleweight, so, you know...
I actually agree with that. I thought Reed won.
Just see some news kicking through here. Apparently, or allegedly, Frank Warren, Michel Soro has not yet signed the contract to fight Liam Smith.
There's a fucking
shock horror, man.
I don't believe that for 1 second.
Please don't go daft boys on
Twitter. The tickets are sale. Fucking
World War II. It's gonna be World War -1 at the end of the week, isn't it?
What's it got at the bottom? We have the right to reserve to change the whatever it's called. That's always there for Frank.
Yep. Disclaimer.
Just malicious rumours and lies. This malicious.
This is started from Eddie. This is Eddie Hearn at work. Frank never does this.
Read the small print. Right, number 2 on my list. Sorry, Alex. So if I went to Curtin, I've only went to you at number 3, mate.
No, I've got Nigel Benn at number 3. I think if you look at it, based on the single win, Nigel Benn's probably got the best single win out of every single guy on this that we're talking about, to be honest. The win over Gerald McClellan. I mean, McClellan was a crunk fighter, absolute ridiculous puncher. He destroyed Julian Jackson twice, obviously a hard punch himself. Very, talented guy as well, and also incredibly tough, as he showed in the Nigel Benn fight. He said he would come over and destroy Nigel in a round, and most people felt he was extremely close and maybe should have done it when Ben got pushed outside the ring. You got to think, at that stage, Ben was, I think he's mid-30s, but he'd been in a lot of wars, and most people, not just Americans, but British journalists and fight fans, they didn't give Nigel they didn't give him a prayer in the fight. They thought he'd get destroyed, and, that single win, against the odds, no one will know how good McClellan could have been, obviously, because what happened during that fight. But great things were expected of him, and Don King was really, high on him, and not just Roy Jones spoke really highly of him. All the crunk guys did as well, and that win there. It's such a great win. And also, if you included the Eubank fight, I know officially it was a draw, but most felt he deserved the win in that fight. So I think, apart from that, there's a few decent wins here and there, but as a whole, it's not a great record. But those two, that single win there is the best, and I'd include the Eubank fight because I thought he was robbed in that fight, and I think that makes him, above Eubank in my opinion. I think, Ben, obviously a great fighter as well, put it all on the line and great to watch. And just for his and after that fight, he was never the same. We spoke about Mike Perez earlier. Ben was mentally and physically, he was never the same after that fight. McClellan's career was over, and even though Nigel carried on for a few more fights, effectively his career as a top level fighter was over as well, because both men just went to the trenches and they were never the same again.
And finally, Alex, number 3.
At number 3, I've got Mr. Carlos Froch. Carl Froch. He went on a really, the biggest thing about Froch, and the biggest plus you can say about Froch is the run of opponents that he fought, and a lot of people give him this warrior mantle, and yet he did have that reputation as wanting to fight anyone, and I think that thanks to the Super 6, he garnered that reputation very well, and he went in against some very tough oppositions and scored a lot of great wins. The Taylor win, as much as he was losing that fight, the comeback in that was just excellent. It's still my favourite Carl Froch fight. Well, apart from Andre Ward, I'm trying to limit the hate at the moment, shall we say. Arthur Abraham wasn't the same fighter at all at super middleweight. He lost pretty much all of his luster as soon as he moved up that extra 8 pounds, and Carl Froch took him to school. He showed a minor ability to box, shall we say. He put on a really good fight there, but he lacks signature wins. He lacks the big wins to elevate him above some of the other guys that are 1 and 2 for me. Obviously, he got an absolute shellacking against Andre Ward. Andre Ward with one hand just beat the piss out of Carl Froch. I think the two-handed Andre Ward, could easily come close to stopping this supposedly granite-chinned warrior. You've got the Groves fights, where I think Groves is winning both of those fights, but maybe you can argue that Froch is on his way out. Slowed down a bit. He was nearly 40 now, and he's been through a hell of a lot of wars. Bute fight, again, Bute is overrated. A lot of people make the I'm not talking about Calzaghe yet, but a lot of people we've got make the Lacey comparison with Bute, and I think that's a justified comparison. Even less so that I think that more people picked Lacey to beat Calzaghe than they did pick Bute to beat Froch. Overall, I do think that at times he is overrated, and I think that he was a very limited fighter who got by on the physical strengths and physical abilities that he had, the physical traits, shall we say, the chin and the conditioning. His conditioning was absolutely unreal, and I think that it got him a lot further than fighters of similar skill, or even better skill, have done. So Carl Froch for me is number 3, and that's as objective as I'll be about the cock-nosed little prick.
Well, my number 2 is the very man, Carl Froch. Suppose he gets a lot of browning points on my list. The fact is that he did fight the toughest opposition available. Now, people could say, well, that's circumstance. He was in Super 6. Simple fact is he could easily have pulled out. Kessler pulled out. Taylor pulled out.
Bute didn't enter.
Bute didn't enter. I mean, people then say, well, Bute, was overrated. And is that win against Froch overrated? I don't think so. I mean,
in hindsight,
yeah, you could do.
Isn't it?
Yep, you could do. But I think the manner in what he went about his business that night actually, was fucking fantastic.
I agree.
Kessler, the first fight, okay, he made excuses going into it, but good fight. I did think Kessler did win that fight. I agree with what Tommy said about the rematch. It did seem to take Kessler a bit of time to get the rust off. I think it was about the first 4 or 5 rounds or something. Then Kessler started getting into the groove. Glenn Johnson won. I think he allowed that fight to be closer than what it should have been, because he ended up getting caught over right hands. Over the top right hands. It's really, he shouldn't really be getting caught with against a guy that age, I think. Abraham boxed the instructions. He really wanted to go into a tear up, but obviously they were kind of wary about the power. And all you got to do with Abraham is keep him on the end of the long punches. And Froch has got long arms. Darrell, he lost the fight in my opinion, but he gets the nod. We've given Eubank credit for getting nods and stuff like that as well. So why should we hold that against him? Jermaine Taylor coming from behind, great victory. And the Jean Pascal wins are all top wins, especially if you consider what Pascal then went on to eventually do. So for me, Carl Froch number 2 on my list, and then obviously as well as, for anyone who doesn't know this, he beat George Groves in front of 80,000 fans. So Tommy, where is he number 2 on your list, mate?
Well, once again, as I'd based mine just on their career achievements, I've got Nigel Benn. He's got the single best win. If you flip a coin between McClellan for Benn and Bernard Hopkins for Joe Calzaghe, but you've got to look at wins like Aran Barkley in Barkley's home country. He's got wins the likes of Sanderline Williams, really good wins. I get Doug DeWitt was a decent fighter. Sugar Boy Malinga, Galvano, going through it. Wharton's going through his record now. Obviously he's got the signature win against McClellan. I think Ben's got an outstanding resume. When he lost to Watson, it was a green fighter. I've said it earlier on. He went in there, tried to award with him, blew up. He pretty much got knocked out with a jab, didn't he? Lost the first Eubank fight, no shame in that. I thought he won the second fight. It was obviously a draw, but I'm going to give Nigel Benn number 2. I think he's got an outstanding career, an outstanding resume.
Steve, number 2.
Yeah, number 2 for me. I'm going for Joe Calzaghe at number 2. And I've said this before on the pod, but I think Calzaghe, from the Lacey fight onwards, he really elevated his career, his resume, I think, from being a good fighter to being a great fighter. Because if you remember back in around 2002 when he knocked out Tucker Pudwill, and then they got in the Byron Mitchell fight, then that was really going to be the springboard. Everyone thought, I especially thought, he was going to have the unifications with Sven Otka, and everything was going to start happening for him. But then he went on an absolutely appalling run, just looking on refreshing my memory, for the next 3 years, fighting the likes of Mugur Mukrichian, Kabari Salem, the rematch with Mario Veit, and then Evans Ashira. Evans Ashira, who was a tiny super middleweight, and after the Ashira fight, I think his career was really in danger then of just sliding into obscurity. But then when Lacey came along, like I say, in hindsight, it's easy to pick flaws in Lacey and what he's become. But at the time, he was coming over as a bit of a machine. He was undefeated. He'd knocked out decent guys, guys like Scott Pemberton and Omar Shaker and Robin Reed. Not world beaters, but just the manner he'd disposed of them. People were sort of calling him like the new Tyson. And he came over with a massive reputation. Gary Shaw really had big plans for Lacey. And Calzaghe didn't just beat him. He just beat him into oblivion and basically just finished his career. And then, saying to Dave earlier, I wouldn't worry about the Sakio Bika fight. And Bika was a strange... I don't know whether he was a mandatory. He must have been a mandatory for Calzaghe or something, because it's a strange fight, trying to think back.
It's not a fight you can pick, is it? I can't
No, not really,
that.
because Bika was just a handful. His only loss, I think he'd fought Marcus Bayer over in Germany, if I remember correctly, and he'd been giving Bayer the runaround for the first couple of rounds, and then he'd headbutted him. He'd headbutted him, and it ended after about 3 or 4 rounds, I think, on a technical decision. He was just a rough and ready fighter. It must have been a mandatory. I can't remember why Calzaghe was fighting him. I don't know. The Manfredo Jr. fight, I'm not even going to count that. And then Kessler, huge win. Great night. Kessler was a beast coming over, nearly 40 wins unbeaten. And Calzaghe not only beat Kessler, but the fight was in danger of slipping away in the middle rounds, I felt, because Kessler started to get that world-class jab going, and Calzaghe adapted his style, and he showed just what a true great champion he was by changing his game plan and beating Kessler, down the stretch. I think that was a huge win. And then going over to America to cement it against Hopkins, and Jones still had something left at that point, but definitely Lacey, Kessler, Hopkins, huge wins for Calzaghe, and pretty much from 2006 onwards, that saved his resume. I'm putting him at number 2 again, because remember most of the fights as well, sitting up and watching them, especially the Lacey fight at like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Dave, number 2 on your list, mate.
This is a tough one for me to decide, but I'm going to have to call it now, so I'm just going to go with Carl Froch is number 2. You can't really argue with the good wins he's had, but in his losses, too, I think he's really distinguished himself. I was a big fan of the first Kessler fight, and I thought that was quite a close fight, even though I had it scored something like 8-4 for Kessler, like a clear win. But there were a lot of swing rounds in that fight, and of course there was the ash cloud, which hampered his ability to compete in that fight.
Oh, here we fucking go.
He still arguably dropped Kessler with that right hand, which the ref didn't call. But anyway, he also gave Ward, I think, a lot of people... Alex is saying he like brutalized Froch in that fight. I think he held his own. I mean, he didn't win. He lost most of the rounds.
He's a one-handed fighter, a one-handed Andre Ward.
I think there's a little bit more put onto that one-handed stuff than necessary. He still used his right hand in those days. I mean, and since he's had his surgery, he hasn't really been knocking fools out. But we'll see as Ward's career progresses. Hopefully. Well, okay, but regardless, I think Froch gave him a tough fight. I think he won maybe one early round with his jab, and in the late rounds, he surged back. I mean, he was still going. Ward was actually the one gassed and holding on. I don't think Ward was ever hurt or in danger of being stopped at all. But I thought it's a respectable performance, and he fought the very best there.
Here, by the way, how the fuck could two judges have that 115, 113 to Ward, and then the British judge have it 118, 110 to fucking Ward? Something just not adding up there.
That was crazy.
They had it even after 10 rounds, didn't they?
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
So if Ward didn't pull out those last 2 rounds, Froch could get the win.
Fucking shocking. Kurt, you're up next, mate. Number 2.
Yeah, for me, it's Mr. Carl Froch. I think, you know, we can say what we want. I mean, I think, Andy, you said it. His run, you know, no matter what you say, he's the best run of fights, win or lose, of any British fighter. And it'll be hard to find any boxer in the world who's had that run of fights. And, I mean, how many times was he the underdog, I mean, in those fights? And he for most part, he always came out on top. He wasn't expected to have the career he had. He did. I mean, in hindsight, people can always shit on wins. They do it with Lacey, they do it with Butte, they do it with Abraham. But going into those fights, even if you thought Froch could win the fights, you were expecting close, tough fights. Nobody expected him to beat Butte the way he did. Nobody expected him to outbox Abraham as easy as he did. People expected Abraham to put a good fight on. And even in the Groves rematch, people expected Groves to finish the job that he looked like he had started during the first 6 rounds of the first fight. But he always found a way to win for the most part. What hurts him is the Andre Ward loss. You know, he lost to the best fighter he fought. You know, there's no shame in that. But I think what hurts him is especially when you're putting him in consideration with Joe Calzaghe, is the Kessler loss. Because when he faced Kessler, Joe had already beaten him a few years beforehand. When he faced Kessler, he lost. A close fight, but I think he was deserving of a loss. But when he faced him a few years later, most felt that, you know, Kessler didn't have much left and he got the win. But when both of them were close to their best, Kessler got the win over him. So I think that's what hurts him in that debate. And, you know, he never really unified against another champion because, you know, when he faced another champion in Ward, he lost. But I think his resume, he's fantastic. And when you fight a lot of good fighters, especially back-to-back, you're going to pick up a loss now and again. That's just going to happen. And I think, you know, he look back and have a great career. And, you know, I think with Benn, Eubank and Collins, I think it's easily his wins. If you stack them up, put top 5 wins against each other, Froch is way ahead of those guys.
How did we all score the Froch-Durrell fight?
I had it 115, 113, I think, to Durrell.
I had a draw, but the point off was fucking bullshit, wasn't it? So
was there a point?
Deduction for Durrell. Remember, I got it for League Holder.
Alright, that means I must have had it 114, 112. I can't remember. I need to go back and check out my fucking scorecard somewhere. But I had 2 points. I'm pretty sure I had.
I had a draw, but that point deduction, that was fucking bullshit, man. If Durrell should have won that fight.
Alex, number 2 on your list, mate.
Number 2 on my list is Nigel Benn. I feel that my mind sort of went blank there when I was trying to think about what I was going to say about Benn. But yeah, Benn, you know, he started off literally as this destroyer in his career. You know, he was knocking guys out left, right, and centre. You know, eventually he got stopped simply by Watson, and because he only knew how to fight one way, and that was to just go in there and try and bomb guys out and it gas. But what I like about a fighter is who has, you know, a bit of failure early on, is he comes back and he gets a big win. And he went over to America and to fight Doug DeWitt, and in that fight he was expected to lose. Most people thought he was going to go over there and get absolutely destroyed, and he won that fight. And you know, that was an excellent little win for Benn. I think that, you know, the Eubank fights, he lost that first fight. I think that was an excellent win for Eubank at the time, but the rematch he clearly won that. The Iron Barkley fight as well. I think that, you know, Benn, he was a lot closer than you know, a lot of people would have suggested, I think. No, Benn again, he destroyed him. It was an excellent little win for him. I think Barkley was, you know, a bit past it again. Who else have we got? I'm just trying to think through some of his wins, getting up to obviously the biggest one against G-Man. I'll just jump straight to it. I mean, the McClellan fight, it's, you know, it's still a lot of people's favourite fight ever, isn't it? It's just a phenomenal fight and a phenomenal win. So many people thought G-Man was this absolute beast. He was an absolute beast, let's be honest about it. He was the next big thing. And I think we got a Twitter question. I don't know if you saw it at all.
Yeah, mate, I was getting read out. I'm going to read it out in a bit after we do this.
Yeah, and he was phenomenal, and what he could have done, if that tragedy didn't happen. But what that really showed in that fight with Benn was just his absolute mental toughness, his strength, his power. His chin was always a little bit suspect, but when he took those constant bombs from McClellan, and even some of the bombs he took against Eubank, his chin did hold up. It was more of a stamina issue, I think. And when you try and compare him to other fighters, a bit like Froch, I've always considered Benn to be just a better Froch in almost every single way. Maybe Froch has had a better gas tank than Benn, or certainly did, better conditioning. But I just think that the power and the relentlessness and the pressure fighting for him, he was just a phenomenal fighter to watch, and that's why. And the wins that he got is just a resume on him. The G-Man win is just excellent, and that's why he's my number 2.
Now, the final do it number 1, and after we do a number 1, we'll be getting the first caller on. I think Cameron Gillian's going to be coming on to say why he thinks Froch should be number 1. But number 1 on my list is the one and only legend killer, Sir Joe of Calzaghe. Now, undefeated, obviously. Probably you couldn't class him as undisputed champion because the IBF wanted him to fight against, the name escapes me now. But either way, wiped out the division, you could say. Maybe didn't fight Sven Otka and stuff, but he has got some good wins there. Rick Thornbury, obviously. Richie Woodall was a decent enough win. Where it does get kind of crazy is where you get that, probably the Mario Vite fights, the Will McIntyre fights and stuff. Charles Brewer was a fucking excellent one, and it's kind of then hampered when you get a fight against Tucker Pudwell. I think that was a late replacement. Was that not for Tommy Tate? I think Tommy Tate was that
on the Tyson undercard that
year? It was on Tyson Nielsen undercard in Denmark, yeah. Was
it
Thomas Tate supposed to be?
Tucker Pudwell, mate. Tucker Pudwell was meant to be.
Oh, that one.
It was in Newcastle.
Will McIntyre was Denmark.
That's the one.
That was a Denmark one. Yeah, he was supposed to fight Thomas Tate at one point. I can't remember who jumped in for him though.
All these bums.
Byron Mitchell, maybe he's a bum from America, but it was a good it was a good fight. Who else is another good bum from America?
Mitchell wasn't a bum.
No, this is what Dave's saying. Another bum. Charles Brewer, another bum. Dave from America, got fucking good brutal fight. What was he called again? What was that Omar guy's name again? Omar Shika. Decent enough.
That was a good fight.
I thought he was a decent little fighter, Shika.
That was a good fight.
Back in the day.
So he ended up in a good fight with a guy that shot Roy Jones.
Kabari Salim, now that was more like a street fight. You'd have seen a better fight to the pub, but that's no Kazaghi's fault.
What about Branko Shobot, the robot?
Croatia, well, again, I think you've got to kind of lay the blame here at the door of Frank Warren sometimes, because for every... But we're not going to say Frank Warren.
Hold on, we don't blame Frank for anything.
Oh, sorry. We allegedly... Sorry. Fuck it. This doesn't matter. You can sue me for what I want. You can get a fucking postage stamp off me. For every decent one, for instance, Jeff Lacey, there's a fucking Peter Manfredo. If there's a Byron Mitchell, there's a fucking Miguel McKerson.
David Starry, that was a terrible fight.
That was Starry's no make the fight that night.
For every Byron Mitchell, there's like 3 Mario Vites.
Richard Woodall was a good fight.
I missed that, mate. Anyway, I mean, he did what Ward had to do. He beat Ibn Sashara with one hand. I think he broke his hand and put the Jeff Lacey fight in doubt. Schooled Lacey. Beat Bika pretty comfortably. Well, in the end, anyway. Kessler, as you say, Steve, he'd actually managed to change his game plan after the 6 rounds because he was getting a bit of shellacking in that, especially in the first 4 rounds. I remember Kessler catching some uppercuts. That second one he caught him with, actually, Calzaghe was breathing heavily out his arse at that point, but undefeated. And I like to wait up at this. You think about Ward's resume in Super 6. Calzaghe would have beat all of them that fucking Ward defeated. Abraham, he'd have beat Froch, he already beat Kessler. So I don't think it's in doubt. He would have beat everybody that fucking Froch faced. And I think they beat everyone that fucking Abraham faced as well. So, in my opinion, Joe Calzaghe, number 1 British and Irish super middleweight.
Yes.
Tommy, mate.
Well, obviously, I've got Calzaghe as well. I think he's head and shoulders above the rest of them, to be honest, in talent. I think his resume is outstanding. Started off with Chris Eubank. A lot of people think Chris Eubank is short. He was far from a short fighter. He'd had the fights with Collins, obviously. A top fighter, Steve Collins, where there were 2 good fights. He went up to cruiserweight after that, and he had obviously the fights with Thompson. So he's definitely not a short fighter. I'm not saying he was absolutely at his best, but we saw a lot less Chris Eubank. That's a good one for me. The Robin Reid fight, that was a close fight. I was at that fight. I was doing in Newcastle. I remember fucking Calzaghe getting a lot of abuse in that fight. He was getting pounded with stuff coming into the ring. The fucking Newcastle bastards. But I thought it was a close fight. I thought Joe won the fight. I thought it was a competitive fight, but I still scored at 116-111 to Calzaghe.
Tommy, it was a strange fight, wasn't it? Do you remember?
It was.
Wasn't Calzaghe didn't he sweep the first 6 and then Reid sort of swept the second 6? It was like that type of a fight.
Joe had his hand in that fight.
He had his hand in the fight, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think there's the footage of Sky when he takes the glove off after the fight, his hand's kind of knackered. But I thought it was a competitive fight, but I still had Joe win it. I thought he just outworked him. The Omar Sheikha fight, I didn't think Sheikha was a great fighter, but at the end of the day, he was coming off a win against Glenn Johnson, wasn't he? It was meant to be Calzaghe.
America at the time.
It was meant to be Calzaghe Glenn Johnson, but Omar Sheikha done the damage and Sheikha got the fight. David Starry is a strange one because I like David Starry. I thought he beat Sven Otka over in Germany, and he beat Clinton Woods as well. Clinton Woods is a good fighter. He wasn't a bum. Clinton Woods got a win over Glenn Johnson as well. So that's kind of an underrated one.
Well, you need to remember as well. Some of the guys that Calzaghe did beat, they were ranked quite high at the time. I mean, Brewer was ranked 3 in the world. Robin Reid was ranked very high at number 2, I think. Richie Woodall was ranked number 3 in the world. So he didn't beat all these bums that people are going on about. Byron Mitchell was ranked 3.
Richie Woodall, I'd agree that Woodall probably was past his best. He'd seen better. He's still a decent fighter, still a decent win way. Charles Brewer was definitely one of the top American fighters who did middleweight and super middleweight in the fought. He was an excellent fighter, big puncher. That was a really good win for Calzaghe. That's kind of the fight that really made me a big fan of him against Brewer, because obviously we'd seen Brewer before. He'd beat Harold Graham over here. He stopped him late. That was a really good win. Byron Mitchell, that was some fight. He was the lineal champion. He's a former lineal champion. He lost his title to Otka too, didn't he? It was a contentious decision.
He did. Well, no, I thought Otka won that fight, to be fair.
That was he took the title for Frankie Lyles. Frankie Lyles was a lineal champion, a top fighter. Frankie Lyles. Salem, that was a weird fight. Both of them doing. Jeff Lacey. What can you say about Lacey? He was hyped to come over, he got ruined. You've got to see, I put Froch and Calzaghe, their wins over Booty and Lacey kind of on the same path. Obviously 2 guys that came with a lot of hype, were meant to win. Obviously it's not worked out for them after the fight. I'd put Lacey and Booty kind of in the same kind of category for Calzaghe and Froch. Bika, underrated fighter, former champion. Michael Kessler, at his absolute peak, top fighter. I think Calzaghe's resume to me is definitely underrated. Very underrated.
Tommy, you mentioned the Salem fight there. Just a quick note. Has anybody ever seen the Salem versus Mario Voigt fight whenever Salem headbutted the referee and broke his nose?
No, I've heard that. I've seen it.
It was coming out of a clinch.
Is it on YouTube?
I'm not sure. I remember seeing it at the time. He came out of a clinch and nutted the referee.
Steve, number 1.
Yeah, I'm going for Froch, to be honest. I take into account the fact that I followed his career from the very start on the BBC. That does play a part with me. Just right from the beginning, just watching all the fights all the way till the end. And I think that run he went on, what Kurt was saying, Froch's run of opposition was just unparalleled. From Pascal onwards, Taylor, Durrell, Kessler, fought him twice, Abraham, Johnson, Butte, Ward, Groves, won the first fight controversially and then won the rematch. I enjoyed the fights, I must admit. I agree with Dave. I think he gave Ward as tough a fight as anybody. And regarding the Butte win, I believe he did to Butte what Calzaghe did to Lacey, because Butte had been built up for years against reasonable opposition. Not great, but reasonable, before travelling for a big title unification. And the fact that Froch didn't just win a tight one against Butte, he just annihilated him. And then the Taylor comeback win was great too, and he added another dimension to his game to completely outbox and new to Arthur Abraham. And I've enjoyed his career, I must be honest. The Pascal fight, the fact it was on ITV, on terrestrial television as well, was great. And yeah, I'm just going to go for Froch. Whether that'll make me unpopular or not, I don't care. But yeah, I'm going to go for Froch number 1.
Okay, Dave, I take it you'll be number 1 as well for Froch.
No, I rated Froch too.
Oh, sorry, you did, mate. Sorry about that.
Nigel Benn's going to be my number 1. And it was a close one because it really comes down to how entertained I am by his style, and I just love his all-out aggression. And even in his losses, how he went like he would get knocked out. Even if he wasn't winning, he was going to get knocked out. Like he dominated. I thought Eubank in that first fight, and then suddenly Big Punch ends his night. He was doing good against Watson. Big Punch ended his night, and then against McClellan. I mean, I think that's a big win. I don't know about McClellan as this Kronk superstar because I don't see a lot of skills in McClellan. I think he was physically one of the most dangerous men in the sport, maybe ever. He had ridiculous power, but the guy's best win ever was Julian Jackson twice, and that style was kind of made for him. He lost to two no account guys earlier on in his career, back to back. I think he was always susceptible to guys who could move their head and come in at angles. I mean, he just stood straight up. He had amazing power, amazing speed, amazing fitness, and toughness. But anyway, that was a great win for Benn, especially coming late in his career. I thought he beat he set the Eubank rivalry right, in my opinion, in the rematch. I thought that he just showed what should have happened in the first fight. Then just several other good fights. No hugely notable wins, but I think that his style would be the one that would have given Roy Jones the most trouble if that fight had ever happened. I wish it had, because I think that would have been entertaining. But I would have liked to see that fight, and I think he would have given Roy Jones a good fight. So I'm going to put Nigel Benn at number one, just for being the epitome of British fighter courage and not giving a shit if you win or lose, just getting the damage done.
Yeah, well, I think Calzaghe's number one. I mean, people say Froch has fought, more consistently better opponents, but I think you've got to take accomplishments into it as well. I mean, it's easy, again, in hindsight, looking back and saying, oh, who's that guy? But if you look at, take a Ring magazine from 1999, Byron Mitchell, Charles Brewer, Richie Woodall and Robin Reed are all top 10 super middleweights. Joe Calzaghe has wins over all of them. In 2005, for instance, the top three are Joe Calzaghe, Mikkel Kessler and Jeff Lacey. Calzaghe has wide wins over both of them. And, he also held every single title in the division. Yes, he's got a lot of crap opponents, but that's just, he was the victim of the WBO 90s bout. It wasn't respected. It was the worst thing for him, to be honest. If he could have picked up one of the other bouts, it would have been better. He would have got him more respect and better opponents. But the WBO, you could milk that. Frank Warren was happy to do it as well. Milk it for the trash opponents while waiting. There was talk of him moving up to light heavyweight. I mean, there was Clinton Woods held a belt there at one stage. Glenn Johnson, he should have fought, and he pulled out injuries and stuff. And he seemed to be he wanted to get that unification fight before moving up. Sven Ottke was supposed to be happening. It was on and off, and it just never happened. Both guys, Sven Ottke wouldn't come out of Germany. They didn't want to go there because of all the dodgy decisions that Ottke had in Germany. But really, he never had the same guys that some of the others had. I mean, if people say, oh, Calzaghe never fought no one, but I'll say, well, who in the supermiddleweight division didn't he fight that he should have fought? The only guy really is Sven Ottke. Guys like Roy Jones passed through very quickly, and they were much bigger stars, and it was very hard to get them to fight. But there was no one really you could say, well, Calzaghe ducked that guy at super middleweight, because there is no one. I mean, they're there to see. I mean, Kessler and Lacey were highly rated, and he fought them. And that's just, if he'd been around now, he would have had to fight better opponents, and I think we would have seen the best for him. But he was undefeated. He picked up every single title. He was the man in the division. He faced guys like Kessler at their best and beat them. Lacey, he never went on to do anything after the fight, but going into that fight, it wasn't just because Lacey was overhyped. Calzaghe was looking poor in the fights before that. He wasn't motivated. He was having hand issues. He was looking like a bit of a past it fighter himself. And that's why when Lacey was brought over, they thought, well, this is going to end Calzaghe's career. And he proved everyone wrong by winning that fight. And now, obviously, everyone says Lacey shit. And I'll say the same about Froch and Boutte. To me, that's a great win, because you shouldn't do hindsight. Most of us would have picked Boutte, and same with Lacey. And I think Calzaghe, I think it's fair points on some of the defences. That's fair enough. But I think anyone, whether it's Bernard Hopkins, Mikuszewski, anyone who has 20 plus defences, a lot of them are going to be pretty poor opponents. That's just the way it is.
Finally, Alex, this is before we got our caller on.
Yeah, it's really got to be Sir Joseph of Calzaghe at number one. Again, a lot of you have covered the main points. Let's start with some of the criticisms, I suppose. The resume is weak, especially at the beginning, shall we say. A lot of just pointless wins half the time. A lot of really shocking mandatories, but that was the nature of the WBO, as Kurt said. Mario Vite rematch, pointless. Again, it was a mandatory, but again, we've seen points about shit mandatories before. I thought that he did lose the Robin Reed fight. But again, name me a fighter who's gone that many fights, 40 or 50 fights without having a few dodgy wins in his lifetime. You really can't do it, unfortunately. He came back, and what was most impressive about Calzaghe is that even though he had all of these pretty average, shall we say, maybe some were above average, some were average wins throughout the majority of his career, perhaps what you would call his prime, but during the twilight of his career, when everyone thought that he was going to lose, that's when he really showed his greatness, and that's when he showed that he was the greatest, in my opinion. The Jeff Lacey win, absolutely everyone thought Jeff Lacey was going to destroy him, and I still think that is a more impressive win than the Butte win, simply because Butte, I think he was about 2-1. I'm not sure what the odds were for Jeff Lacey, but you struggle to find someone to say that Calzaghe was going to absolutely rip up and destroy and tear apart Jeff Lacey's soul. Beaker, decent win for the time, horrible fight, but decent win. Manfredo Jr., whatever, that's they will ignore that one. And Kessler, prime Kessler, coming into that with 2 belts of his own, and he beat him up. And he won that just completely convincingly. And Kessler had his moments. He showed that why he was a world champion, why he was considered such a great fighter. But Joe just proved what a champion he is. And then we've got obviously the venture up to light heavyweight. I've been sort of veering away from just talking about the 168 stuff for all of the guys in my list. So going up and fighting Bernard Hopkins, the legendary Bernard Hopkins, all-time great, who's 6 years on from now, 7 years on from now, should we say, 6 years, whatever, is still beating world champions, and Joe Calzaghe beat him. It was a close fight. I can understand people thinking that maybe Bernard deserves a nod, but in my opinion, Joe clearly won that. And, Roy Jones as well. Roy Jones, again, he on the twilight of his career, but it's a big name. It's a big name on it, and Roy Jones is still fighting now. Not fighting at any significant level, mind, but he's still going. And Joe beat him up, and Joe simply is number one.
I remember Joe getting a lot of heat back then when he fought Jones. Obviously, 10 million for it, right? And everybody was saying he should have fought Kelly Pavlik. I'm not so sure that Kelly Pavlik, had he fought Roy Jones at light heavy, would Kelly Pavlik have beat that Roy Jones? I'm not too sure about that. I know Bernard Hopkins absolutely schooled Pavlik, but I don't think that Kelly would have beat that version of Roy Jones.
And again, hindsight, Tommy will know this as well. Some Americans were picking Roy Jones to beat Calzaghe.
To beat him, there was a lot of people.
But they'll always deny it.
Roy Jones was back. That's what a lot of them were saying.
Is that because he beat fucking Tito Trinidad?
Aye.
He just got dominated and knocked the fuck out by Glenn Johnson.
Yeah.
That was a wee while before that, but
Paul Webb's list was Calzaghe, Benn, Froch, Eubank and Collins. Now, first time caller on the show. He meant to call in last week, but I think we just couldn't get one for some reason. We've got Cameron Gilling on the line.
He's
Cameron,
called in
mate.
Before.
Is he called before? I don't remember speaking to him. Anyway, Cameron, okay, welcome back, mate.
Alright guys, cheers.
Now you're going for Froch number one. Just give us your top 5 list and tell us why Froch is your number one pick.
Yeah, I have 5 Collins, 4 Eubank, 3 Benn, 2 Calzaghe and Froch first. And this from who I've watched, as a relatively new boxing fan. This is from who I've seen. I mean, whoever said Benn has the best single win against McLennan, I 100% agree with that out of all of them. That was an amazing fight, and I've seen it many times. But the reason I have Froch at the top of my list is because I will say this: Calzaghe proved he was the best in the division at his time. Whilst Froch, I mean, he lost to Kessler and Ward, so he didn't prove he was the best. But the reason I have Froch at the top is because of the consistency in competing at the highest level, regardless if you believe they were hype fighters, they weren't as good as they were 10 years before. He fought the best possible names he could have fought. And if you look at Calzaghe's resume, there are a few notable wins, Jeff Lacey and Kessler, and that fight against Kessler was the best win for Calzaghe for me, even if you add in Jones and Hopkins. I mean, I still rate Kessler the best win because he was in his prime, undefeated champion, who was seen as the most threat to Calzaghe. But in between them fights, Calzaghe's best 3 wins were his last 3 wins, realistically. I mean, he had a long run of fights where I'm not going to sit here and discredit the opponents because the likes of Byron Mitchell, Bayer and Brewer, they were ranked top 10 Ring Magazine fighters, but they weren't notable names to a lot of people. But his best part of his career was his last part. And then if you go to Froch, as soon as he won his first world title against Pascal, as soon as he peaked, every fight after was a fight where he was in one and you couldn't definitely say Carl was going to win. It was a constant risk. I mean, you fought Pascal, Taylor, Durrell, Kessler, Abraham, Johnson, Ward in concession back to back. And they all had different pedigrees in their boxing ability that Froch wasn't as adapted in. And yeah, he was a part of a tournament, you can argue, but you look at Carl Froch's style of fighting, he didn't have the natural ring generalship of a Ward or even Calzaghe. He was a one-dimensional fighter who was easy to predict to how he was going to approach you, and he wasn't creative with his offense. He was very flat-footed and very head-on, and he wasn't a fighter adapted. He wasn't a master of his craft, but he was consistent with his mechanics. He stayed in condition, fight shape. He had the heart and the will to constantly win these fights that people didn't believe he could. I mean, you couldn't break him down. I mean, Taylor had him beat, and he was losing that fight clearly, and he dug deep, and he got him out of there with 20 seconds to go. I mean, love him or hate Froch for what he's like out the ring. In the ring, he constantly gave us good fights, and to add to that, Froch actually won these fights in their hometown. I mean, he fought Taylor in the US, Kessler in Denmark, Abraham in Finland, and Ward in the US, and he made a name for himself worldwide throughout his career and fought everybody there was for him to fight. So, I mean, does anyone see any understanding in that?
I think it's
yes. Dave, I'm not sure about Tom.
I agree with him.
You see that you rate the Kessler win over Hopkins. Do you think that if the unbeaten Kessler that Calzaghe fought, do you think he would have beat a 43-year-old Bernard Hopkins that Calzaghe beat? If you take the Kessler that Calzaghe beat against the Hopkins that Calzaghe beat, because I think that Bernard would still have schooled him. I think Bernard would have beat him.
What, would Bernard beat Froch?
No, he would have beat Kessler. You see that you rated Kessler as Joe's best win, but what if you take the Kessler that Calzaghe fought and put him against the Hopkins that Calzaghe fought, who do you think would win Who do you think would win that fight?
I would have picked Hopkins to win, but Hopkins he's just one of those fighters that does. I mean, obviously he's slowed down, but his ring IQ is so good that you can pick him against anybody really. I mean, the only fight he's really been schooled in was Kovalev. I mean, he's possibly fighting Abraham next. I'd pick Hopkins to win that fight, so I'd probably pick Hopkins to beat Kessler, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, you look at, Froch Butte. I mean, regardless if Butte's seen as kind of, is overhyped now, before the Froch fight, Butte was undefeated and he had problems. I mean, he's a southpaw, rangy, he was fast, powerful. He came over him. A lot of people in the UK picked Butte to win, so
I picked him.
I mean,
I picked Booty to win.
Yeah, Kurt's going to win even after the fight. He said he was going to win the rematch.
I mean, because Booty, because of that, you've got to really say it was a good win. It was a great win for Froch, considering the position he was in. I mean, that was a win or lose. Well, it was a lose-lose. If he lost, he was going to retire. So you've got to really say it was a good win for Froch. I mean, that's why I put him as first, to be honest, just because of the consistency and how he won his fights. Regardless of how limited he was boxing ability-wise, he gave us great fights.
But if, say, Lacey beat Calzaghe, where would Joe go? He would have retired, surely.
Calzaghe beating Lacey is as good as Froch beating Butte. I mean, even if these fighters turn out to be, crap, the fact is they were unbeaten and they were seen as a risk. So you've got to really rate their victories over Lacey and Butte, in my opinion.
It wasn't as good because Froch stopped him and Calzaghe didn't stop him.
I think if and Booty hadn't fought Froch and Calzaghe, they would have probably went on to have better careers. I think those fights pretty much ruined them as fighters.
So fair.
Especially Booty, anyway. I suppose. I think if you look at their careers, Lacey's went downhill pretty quickly. Booty's very, very, hanging on by a thread, actually, in my opinion.
Well, the thing with Lacey is too, he had the bad shoulder injury in the next fight against Sipco. He's never really threw a left hook since, has he?
Who's this?
Jeff Lacey.
I thought he lost to Sipco.
He did lose that. Definitely lost that fight. I think he was very lucky in even like the Manfredo fight and that as well. But in a Sipco fight after Calzaghe, he actually he injured his shoulder and he was off for a long time with surgery and that after that fight. And he never threw his left hook or that again. And that injury really hurt his career as well as the beating Calzaghe gave him.
Anything else you want to add to this, Cameron?
Nah, that's all shit, guys.
I just wanted to bring up a point about Roy Jones. I do think that Roy Jones was shot, but how do we think that Roy Jones would have held up against the run of opposition that Carl Froch fought?
168, I think Jones.
Yeah. Well, the Jones that Calzaghe fought, obviously, the state that he was in then.
I think Jones would have beat all of them, to be honest. Jones was shot, but he was still relatively good against Calzaghe. I mean, Calzaghe wasn't exactly a spring chicken when he fought Jones either. I thought it was a pretty even fight. I mean, I couldn't really pick a winner of it. I mean, Calzaghe, the reason he retired after, I mean, he was breaking down physically, so you can't really say Jones was shot because Calzaghe wasn't exactly in his peak either.
Jones was shot to bits at that point.
When they say he was totally shot to bits, he was definitely he was well on the slide by that point. Shot.
His legs weren't as quick as they were.
I mean,
he still had his hand speed was still incredible, and the power was still there, wasn't it?
I don't care
his legs weren't what they were.
Yeah. That drop down from heavyweight back to 175 fucking ruined them. Absolutely ruined them.
It took a long time for him to stabilise his weight, didn't it? After coming back, because he had packed about 30 pound of muscle and to go up and fight Ruiz, hadn't he? And training Mackie Shellston, probably doing things that he shouldn't have been doing.
Definitely.
You only have to see what Calzaghe said about Roy Jones when he was younger to know how he thinks that fight would have gone down prime for prime. He said
if you watch,
he's not looking for tough fights. He's just in boxing for the money.
If you watch the interview, it's said tongue in cheek, Dave.
No, I never watched it, but I don't care.
It's easy to need to pay him the crown jewels to fight him.
No worries. Anyway, Cameron, cheers for that, mate.
Cheers, guys. Take care.
All the best.
Yeah.
So, just to let the listeners know, we've got a few Twitter questions here, but it is getting late. We've ran over just over a 2-hour mark, which is pretty impressive, actually, considering there's no fights at all this weekend. It's been us just randomly chatting bollocks and stuff, so hopefully you enjoyed it. We'll keep the Twitter questions we've got back until next week, because we'll have a couple of fights to discuss, some more Twitter questions. So I'd like to thank the panel, Alex Morris, Kurt Ward, David Loback, Donny Baseball, who popped on for a wee bit there, Tommy Allen and Steve Wellens. I've been your host, Andy Patterson, and we'll see you on Sunday. All the best.
That's a guru.
Sergio TBE.